turn my,
All right. We live? All right, good evening. It's 6 o'clock. On February 7th, we will call the 6 o'clock version of the Select Board, now officially known as Select Board meeting, to order for discussion solely on the Town Hall project. As sort of a kickstart to see what we can do to get that thing. There's an hour to talk about it. If we go shorter than that, we will take a pause. And if we go longer, we'll have to stop at 7 and revisit it another time. So I want to kick off the discussion by saying, obviously it's a, thank the committee for all the work they did for us over the last many years. And unfortunately, last spring, we had a vote that did not go our way in terms of having the project go further. So it took a little pause to figure out the best thing to do. And we sort of, I think, are all under the realization we have to do something with Town Hall, and we can't just not do anything. It's a tough conversation to have because obviously it's money to be spent, which affects all of us. But to kick the can down the road further will just be more a detriment to the community and to all of us than it is to sort of find a solution to solve it. So besides, we have to take a roll call. I apologize. So we're ready for Rose Mary to get here. So Rose,
Thank you.
Rosie's here. So we'll pause for a second and do a. So I don't do a roll call, do I?
oh, you don't have to do roll call, you can just call them meeting daughter.
Yeah, I did call it mean daughter, so.
All right,
I think
we're good.
So in terms of just my thoughts, we can go around the room, but my thoughts are that, is that I think we should talk about, brief history, sort of what happened, what we can do to move forward, what sort of the pitfalls we think we felt, and sort of some of the opportunities that we have and things that we heard. I think it's more important to list the things we heard from the community about why they didn't support or didn't vote for it, maybe didn't understand it, and maybe we can address those concerns. So I'll start with with sort of my brief history, and I think I want everybody to chime in, even the people from the committee. But from my point of view, sort of outside looking in, was that we had gone through many votes and many years of planning without much resistance to the project, much support for the project. The only time we actually hit resistance was about 2 weeks before the vote for the bond. And so, surprising to hear that people thought maybe that this it wasn't that they were against the project. It was they thought that it was an either or. They were going to either have to vote for the project or for something for the school, either whether a field or a school or something. So, we need to really communicate about what that means. Is it an either or vote, or is it an and vote? We can have both. Secondly, I heard some discussion about that there weren't that many employees at Town Hall. There was only, less than 11 employees. Well, I think that's something that we didn't communicate or socialize with how actually active the Town Hall is, how many employees there are, and how vital it is to the community being successful and continuing to be successful. And also creating an environment where we can get people who want to, good talent to work in our community, to help our community. And do that. We also have ADA issues, which probably Darcy will talk about, that we need to deal with, and structural issues, and sort of, environmental health issues. So I think there's some communicate, sort of socialize out of the community, really what's wrong with Town Hall, not just that we want a new Town Hall, but there's reasons why it needs to be fixed. And then there were things I heard about, fundraising. Do we do any fundraising? It's not typically something you do for a public building, but if it's something we need to do, then we will do it, and we're not against it. We just hadn't thought about it. It was a good idea, and maybe we should think about what that means to fundraise. There were things I heard about, CDC, if we can use CPC funds, additional maybe CPC or CPC sort of financing by maybe raising our % of taxes to have a higher match, and how that would impact us and if that could benefit the project. So I think it's sort of more of a, I don't think we need to go back to the architects and engineers. I don't think we need to go back to region. I think we need to sort of look about it from the community and say, okay, what are we willing to do? What are we willing to support? How much are we willing to spend? And then figure it out from that point of view. So I think we have a good design. I think it worked. We voted at one town meeting to spend an extra $800,000 to keep the staircase. Well, it was a vote that town took. It wasn't something that we made a decision on. So, and that raised the price. So those are my thoughts. It's a tough conversation to have, but I think we can't pretend it's not there. We have to. So I kind of want to go around and hear other people's comments and thoughts about what they heard at the time. And so Darcy, I'll go to you next.
I think the main thing is that we do not meet any codes at all. We don't meet plumbing, electric, safety codes. Get this, sanitary codes. We don't make sanitary codes, fire codes, or any of the building codes. In addition, we have no accessibility for people with children, strollers, canes, walkers, wheelchairs. There's just no accessibility. And the CPC money is not what we call fungible money. It's grant money, and it's only given to grants that have been accepted by the committee on the CPC. So I hope that we can get through this without getting confused about where the money's coming from. The other thing is we have a variance, a building variance to put in the elevator addition, which is still shovel-ready. This variance has a timeline. The state is involved, and they're watching us. Now, this variance was, it's like gold, getting gold, to get a variance from the state in such a short period of time. And they did work with us on the design and what was acceptable, and what they helped guide some of the technical issues on that. So we did get that from the state, and it's hanging out there, and they're waiting for us to make a move. So there are so many reasons to move ahead with this. I just can't think of any negatives.
Jamie? Any other thoughts or sort of lessons learned from back then that we maybe can work on?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I certainly agree that the status quo is not acceptable. So we've got to figure something out, and it seems as if we need to get this project across the finish line, unless somebody comes up with some wonderful idea that we haven't thought of yet. But do it, we have to do it in the most financially responsible way. It doesn't seem as if, even though the price tag is kind of high, doesn't seem as if, getting the price of the overall project is going to come in a whole lot lower. But, but some other, whether it's fundraising or in grants and other things, we owe the town a responsibility to try to do that.
Sean?
I guess for me, I think we had overwhelming support from town meetings when it came up. The issue was at the ballot. And, as we've talked about in the past, there was kind of a campaign that, as Bill mentioned earlier, that was kind of a this or that. And it was mainly kind of the turf field group, or people that, not really the turf field group, the group that wanted the turf field instead of spending the money on town hall, thinking it wasn't a necessary expense. And I think it's going to really come down to getting the votes to show up. I think if we had done some type of a better campaign or a phone chain, and even offered to drive people to the polls kind of a thing, the kind of grassroots stuff. I mean, at both times it went to the ballot, we lost by, 60 votes or something like that?
By 60-something,
Right.
67 maybe.
So that's very close, considering the voter turnout that we have. So I think it's really getting people to show up that are for the project instead of, I don't know how many people, I'd like to say we can convince people that it's a viable thing, the ones that voted no the last time or two. But you can't really bank on that. What you got to bank on is the people that are kind of in your corner with it to get them to show up. I think moving forward, we got to kind of figure out timing. We have, and I see Jay on the Zoom here. Jay can speak to the CPC sunset that's coming up here. With the funding, we would have to go back and reapply the CPC and kind of earmark that money for town hall again, if we go past our sunset for the CPC funding, which, I would think it would get support at town meeting, but you never know. The climate could have changed, and people may disagree this second time around to secure that funding from CPC. Plus, we'll have to go back out and get another bid on the project, which, hopefully will be in the same ballpark, but, with materials and COVID and supply chain stuff, it's tough to say. So there will be some cost in that rebidding process. Not a lot of money, but enough money that it is kind of making a difference in the financial kind of responsibility of it. We've already spent probably what, $1.5 million
1.4.
I was gonna say $1.5 million on the project, so it would be, in my mind, not fiscally responsible to keep moving forward with it. You know, that's all money that we've already spent on the project, and it's turnkey pretty much. As Darcy said, it's shovel-ready, so, you know, it's strategizing in how we move forward and marketing it and getting the word out there. And I think, Darcy and Rosie, if I remember correctly, you guys were having some tours and stuff like that, and there's a lot of people that came that learned a lot and agreed, you know, that there were situations at Town Hall, but how do we get the general population to understand I think is our main issue.
Well, we'll have to talk about it a lot.
Right, right,
Make it an issue.
right. And it's not a new issue. I mean,
Right.
there's folks that have been around longer than I have, and I'm relatively new to town. I've been here 20-some years, but, you know, there's people that have been talking about this since, I think, the
80s.
90s or 80s, and redoing Town Hall, and it just kept getting kicked down the road, and we're at kind of a tipping point now where we're going to have to move people out of the second floor and et cetera. Rosie?
Yeah, so I have some thoughts, and the first one is that, in my mind, there are several reasons to do this renovation, several necessary reasons. And to me, a big factor is that this building represents the history of our town. Since 1897, it was a school, a library, a theater. And one of the concepts is having a usable town hall reflects pride in the community, and it encourages people to stay and invest in the community in commercial ventures and residential ventures. One of the other facets of this is that the memorial room, as I said, was used as a school, a library, and a theater. And it was a community asset. And so in keeping with that, I have applied on behalf of the town for a $250,000 capital grant from the Mass Cultural Council. I mean, I don't know if we're going to be deemed eligible for it, but even before this grant opportunity came along, the vision was that we would use the memorial room as a community space for many different things. And so we'll just have to see how that goes. But I think my opinion, despite everything else or regardless of anything else, this building represents who we are for the last 130 years. And I am very happy to see us reinvigorating our commitment to making this usable in the 21st century.
Thank you. Joe, you have anything to add?
I'm here to help make sure that whatever the committee and the board decides, we do our best to get it accomplished for you. You have several members of your
Yeah.
former town hall building committee. I think they may want to see.
Yeah, if you guys want to join the conversation or add, I'll go on the Zoom call first. Anybody on the? Jack?
Sure. This is Jay Butler. Let me just refresh our memories about where we've been. In the fall of 2020, when we went to the ASTM, as Sean said, we did pretty well at town meeting, but when we get to the polls, we lost by 208 votes. There was 1,130 people voting out of the 5,967 total voters, or 18.9%. And at that point, we were asking for 4.7 million, which the effect on the tax rate in the second year would be 20 cents. Now, we were lucky to get the bidders, the general contractors and the filed sub-bidders to hold their votes until the spring of 2021. That was huge to get that to happen. But when we went back in 2021, in May, we were asking for 3.4 million, $1.2 million less, with the second year effect on the tax rate of 15 cents. So we dropped it down a bit. But when we went to the polls, this time for a municipal election, which several of us thought we might have a better turnout, only 981 voters turned out versus 1,130 in the previous time. At this point, we lost only by 71 votes. And so we had, again, 17% of the voters turning out. So we got closer in terms of the margin of loss as we went. And to what Sean said and a couple other people, yeah, I think we need to get out the vote campaign because a lot of people didn't vote, obviously. And I've talked to several people who said, gee, didn't that pass or whatever, and they were just clueless. So I think what needs to be done is a sprint from now until the fall SDM to try to get out the vote and get people to show up. I mean, there's a gazillion reasons why this ought to be done. The project's all designed. We didn't even change it from the fall of 2020 till the spring of 2021. There was no reason. We didn't reduce anything. We didn't have any fluff in the design. So we stayed with the design. We upped the CPC grants to 4.4 million, and we took out some contingencies that we felt we didn't need, but we didn't change the design, so I wouldn't think we'd change the design now. The only other thing I would say is that I guess there's a law that says when you do go out to bid to find out what the cost is now, I think you have to award the contract within 30, 60 days or something like that. So that makes it kind of tough. If we're going to go out and get the vote out for a fall town meeting, it would be nice to know how much we're going to ask sooner than later. So the question is, can you go out fairly soon for a formal bid on this project and yet hold the award of the contract until after town meeting and see how it goes? And I don't know whether that's legal or not, but to go out and ask people to support something when you can't tell them how much it's going to cost will be tough.
Yeah, to that point, Jay, if I can interrupt just a little bit or interject.
I'm done.
I would say, and this is just my opinion at the moment, that I don't think we would go out to bid before we got the approval at the ballot. Typically, that's how it works. We kind of put the cart before the horse. We were thinking we were going to cross that finish line, and we didn't. But I think we would wait this time to take it to bid. In town meeting, whatever warrant article we put would be a not-to-exceed number.
Okay. But the problem you got is depending on when the STM might be, there's a drop dead date of November 15th for the CPC grants. So construction will have to start, or something that looks like construction would need to start
Right.
By November 15th. So if you held off for a formal bid until after this passed town meeting, I don't know whether you'd meet that date.
Jay, would we be able to reapply for the grant if it didn't pass because there was a timing issue?
Sure, but it'll be next spring.
Yeah.
Spring of 2023.
Can I
Well,
ask a couple of questions?
Yeah.
Thanks, Jay, for the insight on the vote. So I think that it's, with it having already passed town meeting, I don't think that this needs to go back to before town meeting. It just needs a positive vote of the voters. So it's possible that you could have an election in the early fall and go out to bid and have your bids back before the deadline. Does the sunset clause in the CPC funds allow for the CPC to extend the deadline a little if you've out to bid and you've settled on a contract?
Not unless it would have to be approved. I think our committee would have to approve the change, and then it would have to be voted at town meeting.
So the sunset
Town
clause was
meeting would
included in
have
the
to
town meeting vote?
Yeah, I think if the sunset clause was on the warrant article, it has to be a town meeting. I don't think the
Yeah.
CPC could
Okay.
extend it.
Yeah, I couldn't recall if
Yeah.
it had been included.
Jay, and that's written into those warrant articles, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember reading that.
Do you think, Jay, this is kind of a side note CPC question, do you think that is, I mean, we've run into this a couple of times, getting close to these sunset clauses. Do you think that it's something that the committee would think about not, as just a policy or kind of a rules and regs instead of putting it in the warrant for the sunset?
Wonder if it
You're
is.
saying would we not put in a sunset?
No, I'd say it's kind of tough to describe it. I guess it wouldn't be in the warrant article, but it would be a policy for the CPC that the CPC internally has a sunset. So if someone doesn't, act on the grant within the 2-year window, that the CPC would close the grant or have another meeting to extend the grant. That way we wouldn't have to go to the town meeting to extend a grant. So it wouldn't be in the warrant language, but it would be in our kind of policies within the CPC.
Don't know
Yeah, food for thought.
whether that's something could be done or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure you can have a grant indefinitely without some sort of a.
Okay.
Well, we've had grants, and that's why we kind of put the sunset in there. Jay, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we had several grants that were a decade old.
Yep.
I think the one that was kind of the longest standing one was for the fire truck building at the public safety area there. And that was at least on our coffers for a decade before we closed that grant.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, part of why we started putting those sunsets in on things.
Well, we did, it's not a sunset, it's a start date, because we were told we couldn't use sunset dates. It's just when the date by which the project will start, because as you well know, once the grant is approved at town meeting, that money is essentially escrowed.
Right.
Unable to be used anywhere else. And so unless there's some requirement for the project to actually start, this is a lot of money to be tied up for a long time.
Right.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, go
can
ahead.
you hear me? Jack Lawrence.
Yeah, Jack, go ahead.
The real problem here, I think, is that there are so many moving parts to this. We have no, we're in a very disrupted environment, as you well know, right now. We don't have a price, and a lot of the key things that were all teed up and ready to go in the last go-round was that we had a firm price. Since then, inflation has obviously taken off. Interest rates are looking like they're going to be heading up. We had a very good interest rate environment. Suddenly that 30-year money is going to cost a lot more, I would assume, than it would have a year and a half ago. And who knows how busy the construction companies out there. We had found a construction company that was looking for this business, and they really bent over backwards to hold their price for a long time for us. Those are the negatives of this thing. The positive is that Windover, I guess, now is qualified to do historic structures, and so that brings in another local company, at least, that could be of interest. Plus, Jay, what's the situation? We will have 2 more allocations, will we not, money for historic renovation prior to starting this project at this point?
Say that again?
Well, we got an allocation every year to historic projects, right? 10%. And so we're going to have 2 more allocations prior to the time coming. So whether there's a possibility of getting more CPC money to cover some of the extra costs that we will incur. I'm assuming that we're not going to tinker with the design, because we had a well pared down design that covered all the code issues that had to be addressed in the course of this thing. But I think what it comes back to is just the vast number of moving parts that are going to have to be tracked down and estimated, because if we don't go out for an actual bid and get a hard bid, we're going to have to study this thing. Somebody's going to have to get paid to put that new number together, and that's going to be a cost too.
Your comment, Jack, on the extra allocation, that's about $70K a year. Not a big number.
Not a big number, yeah. Good, thank you.
Okay. And the gentleman in the room, do you have anything to add to the conversation?
I think Jay probably gave a good overview
Okay.
Well, I just want to...
Sorry, if you're gonna
Jump here, if
talk,
you could just go up to the
the microphone, because
podium.
people can't hear you from there.
Thank you.
Not essential, but I just want to say that the price of construction will certainly go up, but it's, I mean, we could know that fairly easily. An estimate could cost maybe, I mean, I don't know how much it would cost to make an estimate, but we could rehire the architect that would give us a better estimate for a second vote. That's my only point.
No, I agree. We could estimate a not to exceed budget with some experts in a fairly reasonable time based on, we know what escalation's been over the last year, and we know what the price was, so, and we know what the supply chain issues are, so.
Is there any, I'm kind of working backwards here. I'm thinking about the turf field kind of proposal, and they're talking about breaking it up into phases now. Is there any phasing that could happen with the town hall project, or just not really, right? It's just the nature of the project. It
It's
really
just-
couldn't do
There's
it.
so much that has to be done, and once you hit that 30% threshold,
Right, you've got to do
it's
everything.
really easy to do because the building's not worth much.
Right.
Yeah. Joe, you said there was ARPA money, about $1,900,000 that we can also add to that pile?
Yep, you have, there's a couple of different things that Alex and I have talked about that we could bring forward to the board for more discussion. A couple things that you can think about to help ease the burden on this is, you have about $900,000, give or take, left of the ARPA money that you got. You have a general stabilization account and a capital stabilization account. Those funds are set up as part of our financial policies to help kind of protect the town from things like this. So it is feasible that you borrow from those accounts, as long as the town meeting vote that authorizes it also outlines what the repayment plan is. So you could say, we want to take $500,000 out of the general stabilization account, for instance, and that will be paid back in equal installments over the next 10 years. As long as you provide a timeline within that, you could do the same thing with the capital stabilization account. So we have, both of those accounts are at over $1 million now. So you could take a nice amount of money out, as long as you committed to repaying those through our financial policies in the next period of years going forward after the borrow from there.
And we'll know, and then free cash, we'll know what free cash is sometime in
I don't think you need free cash.
March.
Right, we'll know, we should know free cash in March, and you can also use.
One-time expenditure.
You can also use some of free cash, as long as you protect against your financial policy.
Right, yeah, correct.
You're
Right.
supposed to keep 5% of your free cash is,
Cushion.
5% of operating fund in free cash, so.
Right.
Interesting, very
So
interesting.
there's a couple, because of the work that the town has done over the last several years in putting aside reserves,
Yep.
and that now that those reserves have met their minimum thresholds, it is something that the town could look at as a possibility to help control some of the costs of the project.
So I didn't ask anybody to prepare anything for tonight, because I want to just be a discussion, because we got to kick this thing off. But I think the next step would be to do sort of a one-page, financial, rewrite history. What have we spent to date? What do we really have left to spend? And then what are the buckets we can pay for it from? What's really going to be the impact to the taxpayer? Because it was voted down due to the impact to the taxpayer, right? And they thought it was quote-unquote too expensive, but it's not that, it's a lot of money, but it's not too expensive. It was very reasonable at the time for what we were getting based on a public project, and based on what other towns spent on their town halls as well, too. We sort of did all the measurables. And then we figure out what the real net is, and then we can figure out what, and then we can figure out, a campaign. And that campaign can both be to build public, support as well as a fundraiser, right? So it's a little bit of both. I think you do it with the same campaign, raise some money and raise public support. And get the misinformation out there that, that only 11 people worked in whatever those, things were, right? So.
More than twice that amount. As far as what we spent to date and what the numbers were at the last vote, Mike Toomey, right before the meeting, handed me a sheet that he can provide to us. We can supplement this with some work here at Town Hall for going forward, what the other pots of money are and what you might be able to do with them. I think it may be advisable to, we have some of the money that was originally given to the Town Hall Building Committee still aside, unspent. It may be advisable to try to use some of those to get a new cost estimate on the professional cost estimate done on what the project would be going forward. So we'd at least have a target that we're trying to work toward. Because, for me to say 500,000 here, 500,000, not, without knowing what that's supposed to
Right.
build to, is
Right.
being a little misleading. So
And you would re-engage the architect to do an estimate, probably?
I believe that in expectation of this conversation tonight, I believe Tim Olson's already reached out to them. So.
Okay, good. I was going to say that'd probably be good.
Go ahead.
Mike Toomey, I'd just like to make a few comments. And I do have that sheet I can hand out. It's just a cheat sheet from
Oh,
a
wow.
recap. Actually, I can do that right now.
Thank you.
That's just where all the numbers
Thank you.
come
Thank you,
from.
Mike.
I have one.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Well, first of all, we certainly hit a sweet spot in the bidding. There's no question. We were very lucky to get the numbers that we got. Everything was escalating at the time. COVID was setting in. Unfortunately, we're going to have to deal with some escalation going forward. The effort really, the nuts and bolts of this project have already been put together, and we've beat it to death. And anybody that attended those meetings knows what we put the architect and the engineers through. So I don't think there's an awful lot left to be discussed as far as design, unless it was a wholesale redesign. So what you really need to look at is a marketing effort. And I think, Bill, that's what you were
Right.
starting to say. The nuts and bolts part of it is history. That's all done. But it's going to take an effort to be able to explain where the costs are, where the money's coming from. And the group that we had did a great job. But it's a different group that's going to be needed to carry forward the message to the people to get the vote out. So with that said, good luck.
Thanks,
But you're, Mike, are you
Challenge
planning to
accepted.
stay as our technical consultant?
You know I'll always do that, but to head it up, I'm not the right person. We need someone that has,
Marketing it.
Well,
Good
you
marketing
you've certainly done an incredible job, Mike, and we are very grateful for your help at leading this project for so long. And I think we would greatly value your expertise for the nuts and bolts issues, since you're so intimately involved with this whole project. So thank you.
No, thank you. I mean, that work you went into, and it's disappointing that we're sitting here today still talking about it and not building, but your work was amazing, and we want to work hard to make sure it happens, so.
Yep.
well, it was a great group, and we had a lot of various talents that we were able to use to try and bring this project around. Unfortunately, we missed the last step. But some of those pieces are still in place, and it has a good chance of going if it's got the right people behind it.
Right. That's a good question. The five of us on this board sounds like supportive of something happening and us moving forward and figuring out what that is, right? So the question is, do we tackle that here or without the five of us, or do we create a new committee? And we know it's a different committee, right? There's more committees about public support and fundraising and, and financials and marketing, all that stuff. So the question is, do we think we need to, do we think we want to have a committee to do that? Joe, I don't know the different things we can do. Is it a steering committee, what does it need to be?
A task force?
Task force, like how's that work?
So I'd refer to what Sean said earlier in the meeting about, really you need to run a campaign. And that it would not necessarily be a committee of the town. That would be a campaign committee, the way any of you, if you were going to run for state rep or seat on the select board, you'd run a campaign committee and the campaign committee would do the work. Quite frankly, I think you're kind of at that phase where, what you want to ask for is pretty well, has pretty well been determined, and it's known by you folks who've been involved in the process and our understanding of the need. The next step is to figure out how to get that information out to the voters, because that's who you have to convince at this point. So I would lean away from having an official town committee do that work. I would suggest that it's really an election-based thing, that residents of the community who wanted to do it in their spare time should be asked to participate in.
Yeah. I agree with that. I think, as we just kind of thank Mike and the rest of the building committee for all the hours and hours and hours of hard work they put into it, we need to kind of switch gears a little bit and start really getting the vote out, really. And I think, Joe, maybe you can enlighten this, is, how much more would town staff or members of the building committee need to do to get it kind of ready to go again? Is it much heavy lifting, or is it just kind of, we've got it already, we just need a new estimate?
We need to get a new estimate, and
Overall.
and we can certainly the town staff can provide information to the public, but the town staff cannot use town staff time.
Yeah, no, I'm not asking for them to kind of rally the votes. I'm just kind of wondering, as far as kind of the logistical end of things, to get it ready to go to town meeting again, would we still need the building committee active to do any of that, or?
Select board can bring it forward.
Yeah, okay, so then my next kind of thing is that I would kind of ask the former building committee, or still kind of active members, if they're willing to kind of help when we get closer to that critical mass time, and still kind of putting out the word as we get to that point, and then, doing the kind of phone chain stuff, and then we as a select board, and maybe we start to kind of form almost like a boosters or friends of town hall kind of a group that isn't a town committee, that can be more kind of fluid and do a little more campaigning and door knocking and fundraising and stuff like that.
Do you know, I'm sorry, were you?
No, that's fine. Go ahead.
I was just going to add that it should be a two-pronged approach. So while we have people zealously involved with getting this project re-estimated and building support for it, we also should have another prong of people who were reaching out to perhaps people who were against it, and maybe develop some conversations there to see what kind of common ground we can reach. So that would be my thought about it. And I'm certainly willing to continue to work on it. I think those of us who, Darcy and I, along with the building committee itself, were very involved in all the nuts and bolts, and with just a little refreshing our memories, we would be, I would hope, good resources for information that people might want. So.
Okay. No, I think that's good. So let's just talk timeline briefly.
Next steps, timeline.
So next step, I think immediately just started doing a financial, and I'll take what you gave me, kind of doing with Joe, and kind of doing a financial assessment of where, and then put our, I can look at escalation, and while we're working on estimate, we kind of know what escalation is. We kind of put some placeholders in there. And then the other thing was reach out to the architect and find out, what a cost would be to do a estimator. I don't know if Windover even would be willing to do one for us as a local contractor. Would they charge for that, or would they just be willing to do a updated estimate for us?
I think you probably want to work through the architect rather than engage Wendover directly, because if you want them to bid on it, you don't want there to be a
Right, we don't have disqualified bid.
You don't want there to be a perception and a bid challenge later on.
Right.
And then finding out if they actually are qualified. Has that been confirmed, that they are not qualified? And then,
But
and then timeline, so it would have to be, if we didn't want to have a special election, it would have to be in April, correct? You don't have any other elections in November until,
there's
When?
there'll be a state election in November.
Will be?
Yeah, you should be able to, I can check. There's a process to get us a local ballot question.
so our next ballot election is April.
Yeah,
We're not going to be ready in April. So the next one after that is November? We will have, okay.
there'll be a state election.
That's when the CPC money.
There'll be a state election, there'll be a state
So
election.
maybe we could do a special in between
Yeah, I'd suggest you probably want to do a special in between.
You think we do?
Yeah.
Okay.
October.
I think it'll be easier. You guys can figure out the date, but it's, I know there's going to be a primary election, a state primary election day on the day after Labor Day, so you don't want to put too much work on the town clerk's office. It might be easier to see if you could do it that day, if it's allowable to have a ballot question on the primary election ballot. And I have to research that. I've never done it before, so I'd have to research.
But it's really going to be the day after Labor Day?
Yeah, it's Tuesday after Labor Day. I just heard from the town clerk today.
Wow.
It's a busy time of year, because
Yeah.
it's coming back to...
So maybe, Joe, you have a conversation with our clerk about timing and options,
Okay.
and also cost. I mean, it always comes down to cost, right?
And then we had a PR person involved at one point, but I think we need to look at it from a different perspective, so
I do too.
we can
Never
set up...
hurts, yeah.
Yeah, so we can set up that discussion too, Joe, with somebody we'd recommend to sort of talk to us about how...
So you want to
I don't know how it
you want to find another,
Yes.
Yeah.
okay.
Maybe somebody in town who might have some experience and be supportive of the project, so that might be.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a comment, Jack Lawrence?
Yeah, Jack, go ahead.
Down the street from us was a lawn sign saying, "Support my child's education, vote against town hall." I think you have to keep in mind that this is really a two-pronged attack, because I think there are a lot of people in town that saw this project competing very directly with the school turf fields and whatever other expenditures are going to have to go that way. So I think you really you're going to have to slay that dragon at the same time you're trying to keep this one alive. And that's going to take a good deal of effort, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we have talked to the school board about supporting the project, so that's something that we can continue to dialogue with in the next days and weeks and months. But I agree with you, that's part of the process. It's not an either or, it should be an and. So how do we do both?
Yeah, that's part of the two-pronged approach that I had suggested, people who are for the project, and then how do we reach out to people who were perhaps resistant to it and talk about finding some common ground.
We need to make sure misinformation does not get out.
I mean, we're okay. I mean, people are going to be for the project and against the project, but I just don't want it to be against the project for misinformation. Is anybody else on the call want to raise their hand and make any comments on this topic? Just want to make sure everybody gets their comments in, because it's an important topic. Okay. All right. So I think we have some next steps, and we'll set up a meeting for, and I don't mind doing this if you guys want to do a meeting either right before our meeting, or if you want to make it part of our meeting, or how do you want to do it moving forward? So I think we should keep focus on it, right? So I don't want it to get lost in our other meetings, so.
I like meeting before.
Okay.
Do you want to do like I don't know if we need an hour, maybe half an hour?
Half an hour, yeah.
6:30, yeah.
Okay.
Do like 6:30?
Yeah.
6:30
Yeah.
at the next meeting on
Yeah.
February? Okay.
Great.
We'll have more information by then, it sounds like.
I want to keep it going, because a lot of work to do if we're going to make this happen. We have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, I know.
And if we don't make it happen, there's going to be a lot of work to do.
That's true.
Consequences.
That's true. Once again, I want to thank I know it's a longer name than that, but the billing committee, because you guys did fantastic work, and we're going to work hard to make sure we see it come together. So thank you again for coming tonight, and we'll reach out to you when we need your assistance. And you're welcome to join us anytime.
Great.
And we're going to take a. So Joe, what do I do here?
Yep, so you're going to recess,
Take a
from now
15-minute
until
recess till 7
Until
o'clock.
7 PM, yes.
Take a 15-minute recess. Mike's on.
Mr. Rolls.
That's great.
Mics are hot.
All right.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
All right, good evening. It's 7 o'clock on Monday, February 7th, and we're going to call the first official Board of Selectmen, sorry, the Select Board says Board of Selectmen start. It's first official Select Board meeting to order, as we are now officially, as of today, known as the Hamilton Select Board. So we will start by doing the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we go through announcements and board openings. Hamilton Historic District Commission has one opening. Capital Committee has one opening. Open Space Committee has two openings. Hamilton Planning Board has one associate member opening. Hamilton Affordable Housing Trust has one opening. And the Hamilton Human Rights Commission has one opening.
For a Housing Authority rep.
For a Housing Authority rep.
No, not at all.
Public comment, it's the time of the meeting where you have up to 3 minutes to make a comment for something not already on the agenda. If it's on the agenda, you need to wait until that moment. Yeah, go ahead.
This is just a,
Sorry, say your name and
oh,
address.
sorry, yes, Tosh Blake, Sagamore Street. This is just a short invocation, very tangentially related to one of the agenda items, so I think it'd be more appropriate to read it now. It's very short. We all live on American land. I would like to begin by acknowledging the English tribe, the tribe of immigrant peoples from whom the colony, province, and Commonwealth of Massachusetts have taken their fame. I would like to pay my respects to the ancestral bloodline of the English tribe and their descendants who still inhabit historical English territories to this day. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else on the Zoom call wish to make any comment, please raise your hand.
David Smith?
Thank you. Thanks, Joe. Can you hear me, Joe?
Yep.
We got you, David.
Okay. The reason I asked Joe for a minute here was that at our last board meeting, the board members expressed interest in holding a public town forum on COVID-19. But before we went ahead with that, the sense of the board was we should consult with the Board of Selectmen to see if you have a sense of the residents as to whether this would be a good idea or a bad idea. Do you think holding an open town forum on COVID-19 would make sense? You think it's kind of past that point? Do you have a sense you can convey to the board of your feelings about how residents might feel about it? Good idea, bad idea?
Can you describe the format that you would have this forum in? Is it a Zoom? Is it a, what would you do?
It would be a Zoom meeting, probably lasting an hour and a half, let's say, and on a date that fits everyone's schedule, but probably in the last week of February.
And David, obviously the general topic is going to be COVID-19, but what kind of topics do you think you would cover? I mean, like, what would be the kind of, if I were there 10, what would I expect?
Well, actually, the idea of this thing would be to invite questions from the residents before the meeting so that we get a sense of what to expect. And so we'd ask for written questions first and try to answer all of them. And then to the extent there's still residents who want to ask questions, try to answer those. I'm guessing that if the preliminaries to our Board of Health meeting tomorrow is any indication, people are very interested in the masking order that board instituted late December, but also questions about vaccinations and what the board thinks of the value of vaccinations, of testing, of the isolation and quarantines that follow a positive case. So that's probably the gist of it.
I kind of like the idea that more information that gets out there, the better. The more communication we do with our citizens, the better off everybody is. And if it's short, so be it. If there aren't a lot of questions, that's fine too. But at least making an effort to be really transparent, find out what's on people's minds, and going from there. That's my general feeling.
Kimmy, I'm not against open discussion. I just concerned whether it's going to be informational or it's going to be a debate. So that's for you to manage yourself, but I just wouldn't want you to have an hour and a half debate about something that was not productive. But if it was an informational session about data and facts and things that we're doing around town, that would be probably productive. So, I mean, but I'm not against having an open meeting, open discussion.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree with you completely. The idea here would not be to engage in a debate. I think that's virtually impossible to do in a Zoom meeting, but convey facts, factual answers to questions.
You know, I think it's good. I kind of agree with Bill's statement and Darcy's that, you know, the information kind of straight from the horse's mouth, as they say, would be better than someone just getting it off of, you know, somewhere that may be third-party information. They can really ask the Department of Health what the real facts are.
Okay. And to the extent that we get a clear thread of questions on a particular topic of interest, what we try to do, I think, is bring in a legitimate expert to answer those questions.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, that'd be great. Yeah, I like that idea. So I know what we were allowed to debate or vote on, but we were not really allowed to debate or vote on it. But thank you for your comments, and you didn't hear a no.
Okay. Thank you for your input.
Thank you, David.
Anybody else?
I think you have Vicky Missoni here. I saw her checking in, but I don't see her on. Yep.
Yeah, I'm here.
Hi, Vicky.
Hi, Vicky.
Hi, guys. Let me figure out my video here. Sorry. Hello.
There you are.
Hello.
Good evening. Yeah, so Joe asked me to stop in and just talk to you guys for a few minutes about the library solar project. There's some documentation that needs to be signed kind of again. Joe signed a lot of the contract stuff in fall 2021. And once the solar company's lawyers looked at it, they wanted the select board to sign as well. So they added some signature pages to the contract documents that we're asking you all to sign. There's 4 documents. One is the pilot, the payment in lieu of taxes that Hamilton will be getting from the project. One is the power purchase agreement, the PPA, which locks in the electric rate for 20 years. One is a lease, because this company is technically leasing the roof of the building to put the solar on. They're going to own and operate it. And the 4th is a notice of lease, which is what actually gets recorded at the Registry of Deeds. So those 4 documents are available for a signature.
Okay.
And Vicky, has anything changed from the original contract or just the addition of our signatures?
Nothing else has changed. As far as the solar environment goes, though, if you've looked at the electric rates, the project is looking better and better as the national grid rates go up and up and up. So That's good news.
Vicky, did you say it was a 20-year contract?
20 years, yep.
What is this?
The
Solar
contract
contract.
that Vicky's telling you about.
All right, any other questions for her? All right, thank you, Vicky.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
If people want to be recognized, if you could use the raise hand function on your Zoom, but I don't see anybody raising their hand right now.
All right, we will go on to Select Board Town Manager reports, and we'll start with Sean.
Not too much tonight, just a upcoming CPC meeting this week on Thursday. We'll be can't speak tonight. We'll be discussing the small handful of grant applications, the Patton Park Master Plan, the community house. I'm going to call it landscaping improvements, and there was a third one, but it escapes me at the moment because I was late for the meeting last time because of our school board meeting. But we'll be talking about those and talking about their financial kind of plan for it, and then talking about town meeting warrant. That's it.
Okay, Rosemary, anything?
Sorry, I need to find my notes. I was signing something. I'm sorry, do you want to go into Darcy and then come back? I'm
No,
sorry.
no, Darcy said she wanted you to go first. We'll go to me. Me. So there's not much from my point of view. Obviously, the planning board is working through 133 Essex Street. Just as a note, I mean, we have gotten a lot. We have also, as the select board, been receiving a lot of letters and a lot of comments about that project. I talked to Joe about what it's appropriate for us to talk about because it's an ongoing hearing right now. We don't want to get, and it's a separate elected board. So I didn't want to get in the middle of an ongoing hearing by having a dual board in town conflicting with the proper process. So we're going to look at that and figure out a right time that we can talk about that as a board, because it does touch us in a few areas in terms of, our resources, our water. Also, it is some fiscal improvement if we just look at the numbers. So we didn't look at everything holistically. So we'll come up with a time in the future that makes sense for us to talk about it, and we'll do a time. But thank you for sending the letters and communicating with us, and know that we are getting them and hearing them, and at the right time we'll be able to make. But unfortunately, we don't vote on the issue, but we can at least talk about it, debate it, and comment on it. So, and then also we met a couple Saturdays ago and went through our draft budget, which was very productive and a lot of hard work went into that. So we'll continue to develop and massage that. But it was a very good discussion. I had to drop out a little bit early, but from the 2 hours I heard, everybody was well prepared. Brought a lot of good insight, good thought, and creative solutions to save money for the town without sacrificing service. So, and that's just town. We didn't really get into the school at that point, but it was just the town budget. You ready, Darcy?
Yes, I am. I met, along with Rosie, with the Hamilton Wenham Greens group. It's a group that formed originally, I think, in 2011, and they've had their ups and downs over the course of the last 10 years or so. But now there is a resurgent and urgent matter with our environment and our climate. And so they're coming back, and they actually have written a first reading for a resolution for climate change for Hamilton, which is on the agenda, so I won't go into that. But it was very productive. We're meeting with them every other week. We're looking to light a fire under people so they'll understand the urgency of the moment and that we can take action. So I will continue working with them. I also went to the Boxford Democratic Town Committee. They had a speaker series, and again, it was on the climate. People are just starting to realize how dangerous it is and how much we have to do. So I want to focus on that. I want that to be a big focus for the board going forward. I think it's just, it's inevitable. And that's it.
Okay. Jamie?
Yeah, so the Affordable Housing Trusts met last Wednesday. There were no votes taken, but just updates on the Habitat for Humanity project on, I think at 434 Asbury and on Asbury Commons. So the Habitat project will probably be breaking ground later this spring. I think the Asbury Commons project will probably might be a while before they're doing any actual building. So it's just some general updates on that. Representative Belcito asked me to pass along to the board her appreciation that we, for the extended producer responsibility resolution that we sent to her. And that's all I have.
Okay. Rosemary?
Yes, a few things. So the Master Plan Steering Committee met last week, and we worked on the town survey questions. We'll be meeting again this Thursday, and it is quite an ordeal to develop those questions. We certainly want to see reflected any changes in the town's philosophy, what has stayed the same, to really understand the direction the town wants to go. And as Darcy already mentioned, the Hamilton Wenham Green was just a really interesting and energetic group of folks. I really enjoyed speaking with them. Regarding the EPR, I did meet with Ian Giroux. I don't have the document right in front of me. I apologize for that. But the questions, the issues that we were concerned about, Ian took them out of the document. And I do apologize for not having it right in front of me, but I will find it and send it back to the board to review. And then finally, the Conservation Commission met last week, and they approved with 15 pages of conditions for the development at 133 Essex Street. I will say that all of the members of the Conservation Commission voiced reservations about reservations about the project in terms of the environmental impact, and they all voiced frustration that it was out of the scope of their jurisdiction. So at least one, if not two, of the members went to the planning board meeting and just talked to the planning board about their concerns and urged them to do textbook due diligence, which I have every confidence that the planning board will do. To date, we're not sure of any abutter response to this. We'll just have to wait and see. But they put in 71 special conditions, so the Concom did absolute due diligence on their part. And I think that's all I have today.
Good. All right. And Joe?
Yeah, so the next town manager report was forwarded to you today. It'll be shared on the town website tomorrow. The town manager report is kind of a little bit of a misnomer. It's actually compiled with feedback or input from all the department heads, so just want people to be aware of that. It's not all things that my office does or anything like that. It's much farther reaching than that. I also wanted to let you know that I haven't got the number yet from the school department, but I know that last Wednesday, the school committee did vote to amend its budget downward a little bit. Not as big as the request from the Finance and Advisory Committee, but I believe the impact to us is about $180,000 reduction in what their assessment to the town of Hamilton would be. So we've done a lot of good work to keep ourselves under a need for 2.5 this year, and that other $180,000 will be a huge help and make sure that we're ready for what comes in the future. So I'm very appreciative of the efforts of the school administration and the school committee for supporting that work. So.
Okay, thanks, Joe. All right, we'll get on to the agenda. So first we have a consent agenda. We have 3 items on the consent agenda. First item is approved minutes of 5 boards meeting on January 13th, 2022. Second item is request for the You Can Run Half Marathon for May 7th, 2022. And the third one is accept 2 gifts to the Hamilton Council on Aging, one being a $20 check from Shangzhe Wing, and one being a $15 check from Francis and Hubert, I'm going to mispronounce his name, de la Sevier, to benefit. So do I have a motion or any further?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Unanimous. Well, thank you for the gifts. Is that Council on Aging?
That's great for Meals on Wheels.
I think I just would like to say that Council on Aging Director Teresa Woodbury was here in case you had any questions. I just want to thank her for coming. I don't think she needs to be here for anything else, but if your board has any questions.
No questions. Thank you, though, Teresa. I hear good things.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right, we have a bunch of items on the agenda, but some may take longer than others and shorter than others. But first item is approve Kathy Simmons as member of Conservation Commission. Simon, sorry. So this was on our agenda from a few weeks ago. We want to give Kathy an opportunity to introduce herself. So is Kathy there?
I'm here.
Oh, hi, Kathy.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah,
Ken.
Kathy.
Hello, good evening. Thanks for putting me on the agenda again.
Thank you for coming. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I moved to Hamilton about 3.5 years ago from Danvers, and I am retired. I worked at MIT for about 30 years, starting as an early childhood educator to help parents at MIT, faculty, staff, and graduate students with childcare and parenting issues. But it soon became apparent, this was 30 years ago, that there were no resources to direct them to. So I got busy building them. Basically, over the course of 30 years, constructed a network of childcare programs serving about 350 kids from infancy through 6 years of age, and parenting education programs, job flexibility programs, elder care programs. By the time I left, we were taking on some mental health and wellness and legal and financial advisory programs too, all to try and help folks who are extremely busy with the balance and integration of work and personal life, and make MIT more competitive. That's kind of a far cry from Conservation Commission, but there were a couple of things that I would point out that I did have experience doing, and one of them was I'm pretty well versed in reading state regulations. I was responsible for ensuring that our 7 childcare centers were in compliance with not as complex regulations as CONCOM, but very complex regulations nonetheless. And also in making presentations to the community and on sometimes challenging and heated topics, listening to all sides of concern, and working with building construction and green building construction. Environmentalism has been close to my heart for a long time. We built natural playscapes and very green childcare centers. And basically right now, my motivation for my interest in joining CONCOM is to get to know my community here in Hamilton. We moved here because we love the environment of this community, its location, and its open spaces. But I have not gotten to know a whole lot of people during COVID, and I want to. I'm retired now. I retired 3 years ago. I want to do something useful. I want to get to know people, and I've been busy learning about CONCOM after talking with Lauren and Brian. I've been attending meetings and taking certification classes with the state and going through the orientation for new CONCOM members. There's an awful lot to learn. It's very nuts and bolts. There have been some surprises about what's involved, but I'm eager to learn and excited about the job.
Well, thank you for volunteering, and I'm glad that you're retired and you're still eager to learn, so that's important. That keeps everybody young, right? You're well-spoken, you show leadership skills, and though it may not be related in its specifics, I think that you will bring innovation and a fresh mind to a very important topic for all of us in Hamilton, and that is our resources here in town. So no, thank you, volunteer. I don't really have any questions for you. I think you stated everything I wanted to hear. So thank you. Anybody else have any comments or questions for Kathy?
I just wanted to thank you for applying, and you sound like a wonderful addition to our Hamilton family. Thank you.
I'll just kind of echo those two thank yous, and Kathy, I'm just so glad you've kind of jumped in with both feet already. You know, usually people wait till they're kind of officially appointed to kind of get into the nuts and bolts, as you said, but I'm really glad you're already off and running.
Thanks for your encouragement. It's great.
Yes.
Very welcome.
Kathy, this is Rosie Kennedy. I wanted to welcome you as well, and you certainly seem very chipper tonight, so I'm glad to see you feeling better and on your way to becoming a productive member of the CONCOM. So thank you for coming to join.
So I have a motion.
Thanks for your patience.
Yeah, I move that we approve Kathy Simmons as a new member of the Conservation Commission.
Second.
Do a second. Any further discussion or questions from anyone?
Nope.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
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 That's unanimous.
Thanks for joining us.
There you
Thanks,
go.
Kathy.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
We have Police Chief Russ Stevens here for a department head report. Welcome, Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I thank the board for affording me the opportunity to present to you this evening. And I have two of my officers that are going to do most of the talking this evening. So part of our community policing model is we're always looking for different programs that we can bring forth to the community, inclusive programs to bring us all together, and also programs that help us in our community. And there's two programs we're going to discuss tonight, and one is the Autism Outreach program that Officer Archidini is going to talk about. And he'll talk about the history and how it came about, and what he's done so far, and how we've interacted with the schools and worked with the schools. And he'll probably touch on how he's going. He's very passionate about this program, and then he'll talk about how he's gone door to door and met with parents and met with the schools on this program. And the second program we're going to talk about is going to be the Silver Alert program. And with equal passion, Officer Santarelli, Jake Santarelli, took this program on his own. He's been working with the Lieutenant James, and working with our new COA director to get this program off the ground. And so the first program, though, I want to talk about is with Joe. So Joe, if you don't mind, if you could talk about the Autism Outreach program.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you to the town manager and the entire select board for this opportunity. So as the chief said, we did start an autism disability outreach program through the Hamilton Police Department. The program went live on January 18th of 2022. So we're about 3 weeks old right now. In order to understand the benefits of the program and the concepts and what really makes it worthwhile to the community, I think it's important to know the history of how we got to this point. So professionally as a police officer, I understand what it takes to interact with all types of individuals, but personally, this program means a lot to me because I have 2 children, and my oldest son, Steven, who's 14 years old, he is on the autism spectrum. And one of the beautiful things is most of the men and women in this department, I'm in my 20th year now, where they saw Steven born, they've seen Steven grow up throughout the department. It's like a second family to me here at Hamilton PD. So they've seen Steven grow up, they've seen his strengths, they've seen some of his weaknesses. So being around autism isn't unfamiliar to the members of the Hamilton Police Department. So how this program came about was really in March of 2021, understanding that April was Autism Awareness Month. A bunch of the officers approached the chief and said, hey, can we do something to raise awareness for autism? So in April, 2 of the things we did was every single police car had a magnet on the back of it that said autism awareness, and every police officer wore a blue bracelet on their wrist while they're on duty, and the bracelet said, be the difference. The feedback we got from the community was very positive, and this was kind of a stepping stone to say, hey, I approached the chief and said, we should do more for autism. It's a year-round event. I live with it every day, and he was totally supportive. So the next step was I went off to training. One of the places I went to training was Chestnut Hill, the Flutie Foundation. One of the side benefits is I actually met Doug Flutie, which is pretty cool. And due to the pandemic, a lot of the training was online. I handled various seminars on how to start an outreach program from scratch. The first thing I learned that was very universal in every training was you have to educate your police officers. You can't build credibility within your community and with the members if your officers aren't educated about autism. So what we decided to do is we partnered with the schools. We went to the Winthrop School, and one of the special education teachers was Joanne Coughlin. We asked her if she'd put together a training specific to the Hamilton Police Department with all about autism and all the behaviors that are commonly associated with autism. I personally reached out to Joanne and asked, having a son with autism, I'd like to kind of incorporate the personal aspect of autism during the training, so she allowed me to work with her. I'm happy to say in August of 2021, we held the training. Every member of the Hamilton Police Department attended this training. We opened it up to the Wenham Police Department, and all of their members attended as well. No one left this training as an autism expert, but everyone left with more knowledge and more education on behaviors and what exactly autism is. One of the beautiful things about the training is, in preparation for it, I reached out to the community and I went out and met with 3 families. All have loved ones who are over the age of 21 who are affected with autism. One of the families I knew personally, the other 2 I never met personally, but I knew of their children. This is how I knew the program would be successful. In meeting with these 3 families, they all opened the doors for me, even during a pandemic. I ended up expecting a 5-minute conversation. I was there for over an hour with each family, talking about my son, talking about their families. They saw the passion in me. They saw how sincere I was about this program. And I saw in their eyes the appreciation that a Hamilton police officer was reaching out, wanted to know more about their loved one who had a disability. So based on that, we decided to keep moving on with the program. So the next step was, one of the best assets we have here is the Hamilton Wenham School District. So I started with the superintendent, Eric Tracy, who's been nothing but super during this whole process. Met with the leadership team, which included all the principals, and our school resource officer. Any door I needed open, any contact I needed, Officer Richards, who's our school resource officer, was always available and always made it happen. So meeting with the schools, using their ideas, talking about the program, we decided to go ahead, it was time to launch. So what exactly is the program? So if you go to the Hamilton Police website, one of the main icons says right on it, Autism Disability Outreach Program. When you click on it, it gives you some background information, and attached to it is a form. It is a 2-page form, very quick to fill out. The first page is all biographical information. Tell us about your loved one who has either autism or any disability, whether it be physical, mental, intellectual. It benefits the public safety and our first responders knowing this about your family. Some of the questions we ask after the bio is, tell us some triggers. What are things that we should or should not do? Are there sensory issues? You know, every truck we own for the police, fire, and ambulance has loud sirens and bright lights. Should we not use them when we approach your house? This is all information that we can have now due to this program. And the other thing is, tell us what we should talk about. I know for my son personally, if you interact with my son, bring up local sports or movies, you have his attention and he's happy. And so based on these programs in this form, once you submit it, it comes to me for Hamilton. I am the liaison for the Hamilton Police Department, and I enter it into what we call the Computer Aided Dispatch System, or we call it CAD for short. All it really does is, if I enter your address, it populates everything I have on the form. So I know if I go to someone's house at 123 Main Street, it's going to populate that there is a member in this house that's part of the outreach program, and now I can call my dispatch and go, give me the background. What are the triggers? What are the topics I should talk about? Who is the individual? How old are they? Because the more information we have as a first responder, as a police officer, increases the chances of a positive encounter. And that's what we want to do. We want every encounter to be positive. So understanding that we are a regional school district, we did partner with the Wenham Police Department. We sat down with their administrative staff and advised them of the program we wanted to start. They were all on board, open arms. So whether you live in Hamilton or Wenham, if you work in Hamilton, or even if you attend events in Hamilton, we strongly recommend to go to our website, fill out the form, and give us the background. So if we have to go to your house, we know any relevant information that could be beneficial. So with all that done, on the 18th is when I went live. I had a similar Zoom meeting, and I decided to use a Special Education Parent Advisory Council, what we call CPAC for short. And I met with them. I gave them a more in-depth overview of what the program was. I answered questions. And one of the feedback I got about the program was, is there an icon or a logo or something to identify a house? One of the members, citizens, mentioned that their child does drive, and she had an interaction with the police officer that overwhelmed her and overstimulated her. And we didn't realize that she was on the autism spectrum. So it just happened today where we finally put the finishing touches on our logo. And I wish I had it for you today. It's still on the finishing touches. But what we're trying to do is we're creating partnerships. That's the logo we chose. We have a logo, that's our slogan. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna offer any member who signs up for the program is gonna be given a couple stickers. We're gonna recommend put it somewhere in the front of your house, on your front door, on the bay window, somewhere where if we're walking up to your house, only the Hamilton police are gonna know what that sticker means. And if some layperson sees that sticker, it's a starting point for a conversation, and where that family decides to go with that conversation is up to them. The program's confidential, it's voluntary, and we wanna respect everyone's confidentiality. And same thing for the parent who had a child who drives and can become flustered, they can put this sticker on their rear windshield. So if a Hamilton police officer approaches the car, we see that sticker, and that's information, and that's knowledge that we have when interacting with this operator. So the program's up and running. Right now, we're really working on the advertising portion. We want to spread the word. This is another avenue we're using to spread the word to get more people involved. Future endeavors with the program is we continue to partner with the school. April's right around the corner. Again, Autism Awareness Month. We want to run a couple programs, and we're looking to do some fundraising. The important thing that I emphasize is I want local businesses, local charities, local money going to the local schools. I want to work with the special ed departments for each school and find out what do you need, what can we raise money for. And we do have a couple ideas for this April and for future endeavors. But the long of it is the program is up and running, and it's all about creating partnerships with the community. And when I talk to people, I literally ask them, what can we do for you? What can the Hamilton Police do for you to make things better, to make things safer? And I'll just end by saying, this is why we live in Hamilton. This is why we work in Hamilton. It's for programs like this, small bedroom community, and just great outreach programs to meet the members, and the members get to meet the police department. So thank you for your time on this great program.
Awesome.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Joe. Can we ask you some questions now, or should we wait to the end?
Oh, please.
Hi, this is Darcy on the board, and I was wondering, I think the fire department could really benefit from being involved in this program as well. Is that something that has been discussed?
So Darcy, it's actually a good point. We ended up pairing up with Wenham Police Department. I think to your point, the fire department should know what that sticker is. If they go to they see a sticker on a door, if a parent so chooses to have it there, they would know what it means too. Joe, I don't know if we've discussed that with the fire at this point.
Because they're our main EMS providers, too.
Yeah, well, you're correct. We have a three-tiered response: police, fire, then ambulance, or vice versa with fire and ambulance, depending on who's working. We're predominantly the first ones there because we're always out and about, but there are times when they respond first too. So I think that's a good idea. We can always bring it over to the fire and have a sit down with fire administration, and they can put it out as part of their training as well, so they can identify what that sticker means. Part of what we did too, Darcy, is we went over to Wenham because Wenham didn't have it, but yet we share the school. It's a school district, and part of it was getting everyone involved, our community involved, and we know it's a unique relationship, a unique marriage between Hamilton and Wenham. So we reached out, we met with the deputy chief and the chief of Wenham PD. They gave us a liaison person, an officer from Wenham who works with Joe, and it's the same exact program for both, because there has to be a liaison in Hamilton and a liaison in Wenham. So we have it in both towns. So that's a good question, or a good comment about the fire as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, great program. Thank you, Joe. Very impressive.
Joe, this is Rosie. I absolutely love this program. I, too, have a son who is disabled with a major mental illness, and I have gone out of my way to make sure that he knows that the police are there and the fire department is there to help him, because I worry, God forbid, if something happened, would he be okay and be able to deal with it? So I would love to sign up for that program, and I think it's absolutely astounding. So thank you so much for your work in this.
Thank you, and I hope you do consider signing up for the program. It's a great program. And just to get back to Darcy's point, the fire department is involved. That's the beauty of our computer-aided dispatch system. Any knowledge that we have, they will have access to. The logo and the sticker literally just got finished designing today. And with Chief Stevens, I was planning a meeting with the fire department, making them aware of what the logo means. But in the meantime, any information we have, any first responder associated with Hamilton, whether it be police, fire, or EMS, can have access to this vital information.
Once the information is loaded into our dispatch, and a call comes in, and the dispatcher punches in that address, it sends up a flag, a screen comes up, and it gives, the dispatcher is able to give the information, but we have to have the buy-in from the townspeople, from the community, to put the information in the system. And then when if a call comes in, then it pops up, it populates, and then we are able to give it out then to police and fire. So it's a great program. It's one of the first ones that I know of in our area. So, again, I'm very happy that Joe, he's so passionate about it, and with involvement comes commitment. The whole department's involved in it, so we're all committed to it. So, does anyone else have any questions for Joe? So the next program I would like to talk about, and then again, I appreciate your time, is the Silver Alert program. So when we talk about passion, Jake Santarelli has a lot of passion as it pertains to this. He came to us, as Joe came to us wanting to do it. Jake came to us wanting to do this one. And we've been trying to get this going for a while now. And now that our new COA director is in-house, we're able to get this off the ground. We've been waiting for her to start, get a permanent COA director, so we're very happy to have her on board. So the Silver Alert program, it provides support to family members caring for adults afflicted with serious memory impairments, such as dementia and Alzheimer's disease, who are at risk for wandering. We've had those in the past, and I'm going to turn it over to Jake, and Jake, it's all yours.
Thank you, Chief. I'd like to thank the board and the town manager for giving me this opportunity to speak. Quite recently, and when I say recently, I mean since October of 2020, the department, we've had a couple interactions with persons with dementia or Alzheimer's. I specifically recall October of 20, we actually had a Wenham resident wander from his home, and he made it all the way up to the high school before somebody called or saw something out of the ordinary. It was end of October, evening shift, and it was getting cold out. And then July of last year, July of 21, we had another Hamilton resident who wandered from her home, and she was actually found on School Street. We don't really have a database or a way of tracking or knowing who has these conditions, and how best we can address them or give them the help that they need. So the Silver Alert program provides support to family members caring for adults afflicted with serious memory impairments such as dementia, Alzheimer's disease, who are at risk for wandering. The Silver Alert program also provides the Hamilton Police Department with vital information about potential at-risk residents in the town who may wander or have the potential for getting lost. This program takes a proactive approach toward protecting some of Hamilton's most vulnerable citizens who suffer from serious cognitive impairments. The Silver Alert program is a partnership between the Hamilton Police Department and the Hamilton Council on Aging. And to participate in this program, we're gonna ask people from the town to register with a form that we've already prepared and provide a current photo for the registrant. We want to know the person, the medical history, and this is all going to be entered into a confidential database that only the Hamilton Police Department has access to, and the only time we're going to utilize it is in the event that a resident goes missing. Having this information ahead of time is going to help reduce response times, and in turn, it's going to save lives. Registration forms are going to be available at the Hamilton Police Station, Hamilton Council on Aging. I want to throw it online on both the Police Department and the Council on Aging's websites. And then, if it's, if we have a hard copy, it's going to get turned into myself or Teresa if she's if it's during business hours. Now, the form again just asks basic biographical information. Obviously, person's name, their address, any places where they've previously lived, medical conditions, emergency contacts, and medications. Those are the big questions that we want to know. In terms of getting this off the ground, I know I've been working with Teresa. She's wonderful, very passionate about this. We're looking to get this in the Council on Aging's newsletter for the month of April, correct, Teresa?
Yes, that is correct.
And then once that occurs, we want to, put it on the town Facebook pages and other forms of advertisement. I think that's still in the talks of how we're going to get it done, but we'd like to eventually hit the town completely. Teresa, do you have anything else? Or?
So the Council on Aging, I just want to add, is looking at a dementia-friendly, age-friendly initiative. So this is kind of the perfect time to introduce it. Currently, as of 2018, 11.5% of residents over the age of 65 were suffering from a memory impairment. So in terms of Hamilton residents, that's quite a few of our Hamilton residents that have a memory impairment, and that number is only expected to grow. Statewide, that average is 13.6. And again, as our baby boomers continue to age, our numbers are going to continue to increase. So when Jake came to me and said, I have this program, I thought it was a perfect time to introduce it, especially with our age and dementia-friendly initiative that we're partnering with Wenham. Our hopes is to get Wenham on board with this and kind of partner with them. Eventually, I'd like to see Hamilton, kind of get it going and then introduce it to Wenham as we kind of iron out the kinks. And I think figuring out what the best way to introduce it to everybody. Definitely we have the My Senior Center that we can do a phone blast to get it out there. We have the newsletter. So, if anybody has any ideas on how to get it out there to the residents, it's going to definitely be not just populating it to our seniors, but also populating it to their children, their grandchildren. So yeah.
It's definitely going to take a village.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions?
No, another great program, though, so thank you for sharing.
Yeah, that's really good, Jake.
I thank the board for your time. I will be coming back before you, probably one of the meetings next month, just to get on your radar. I'm going to be discussing the Cutler School on Asbury Street, making it a school zone. So that's something I want to present to the board in your capacity as traffic safety commissioners, which you are in our town. And I'll be talking with Joe on that. I've had some preliminary conversations with Joe. I'm going to work on putting a PowerPoint presentation together. We just got a traffic study back for Asbury Street. So probably next month at one of the meetings, I'm going to ask Joe to put me on the agenda to come before you on that issue. Absent that, I thank you very much for your time this evening. I know you have a busy agenda, but I do appreciate you allowing us to come forth. And I'd like to thank Teresa as well. I spoke to her earlier, and I definitely appreciate her passion for the job that she's doing. And I thank the board for having me this evening.
Joe, you're welcome to come anytime. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you, Russ.
Before they leave, I just want to thank Russ and Jake and Joe and Teresa. I think people often think about law enforcement in a different way, and they don't understand the way our local police department here is really looking out to serve all the residents of the town of Hamilton to the best of their ability. And I think the two programs highlighted tonight by Joe and Jake really show what policing in the modern century is all about. And I appreciate the leadership of Russ, but just as much I appreciate Joe and Jake for showing the initiative to bring these kinds of programs forward, and for obviously also Teresa for partnering with Jake. Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Take care, folks.
Night.
Night, thank you.
Good night.
All right, next item on the agenda. Hard to follow that one up, but review request from the community house for a community block party on June 25th, 2022. So this is a annual event.
Right around the corner.
So,
Hasn't been lately, but.
well, it hasn't been lately, I guess,
Could be
yeah.
again.
So, Joe, what's the, sorry, my computer just shut down here, so can you
So, actually, the community house also did share some information today,
Yeah.
late in the day, that we sent to you. Let me see if I can pull up, I think it might be in the pack. Oh, yeah, here it is. Share the screen, and
Show. Looks way amazing.
so this is a kind of two-page flyer, and I think Gail is here from the community house to answer any questions you have. Basically, though, this is the annual event with fireworks and a day of fun, family fun in Patton Park. So.
Right, I am here, but I also have two of my board members, Jen Daniels, who is going to be the incoming president of the board, and Amy Wallach, who are both on the special events committee. And I'm going to let them speak to this wonderful paper that Amy Wallach put out. It pretty much tells everything. So Amy, are you ready?
Yeah, I am. I first just want to say thank you for giving us the opportunity to come before you guys and go through this. I do have Jen Daniels, who's also on the call as well. I do apologize for the late, for getting this to you guys late, but I'm glad that you do have it. So yes, it has historically been an annual event. I actually think the last time I came before you guys was during COVID. We were trying to do the rolling block party, and now here we are bringing back the real block party. So you'll see in just kind of an overview of what the plan is. It would be, we have the date of the 25th with a rain date of the 26th. We're having, various entertainment, food trucks, and then of course the fireworks will start somewhere around 9. We did meet with Sean from the rec department last week to go through, what his thoughts were, what he'd like to see, how we could lay out the park, what areas, are off limits for, safety reasons, things like that. So a lot of this is based on the feedback from him. So you'll see that for entertainment, we're doing similar to the last one, which was in 2019. We have bounce houses and carnival games, face painting, the airbrush tattoos. We have a street performer, and then we are working on a DJ and hopefully a band. The pictures of the bounce houses on this are some of the ones that we are getting with the company that we are using, which I believe is the same company that was used at the 2019 block party.
Yes.
So, and then we are working right now to round up some food trucks and dessert trucks, just like we did back in 2019. You will see on the second page has the map of the park. And I just kind of put this together just to give you like a little bit of an overview of kind of where placement for various things would be. So the dotted red line is kind of roughly where we have to block things off, where the fence will go up. That's the barrier from where they are staging the fireworks, I think in the schooling fields. You'll see there's a red line down at the beginning of the access road because the access road will be closed to the public. That will be available for vendors, but there will be no parking on the access road that's on the left side of the park next to the train tracks during the event. The plan is in section 10, which is the parking lot over near the tennis courts, to create more handicap spots there. And then the parking lot over near the pool will also be closed. And again, that is in part, I think, because of like safety precautions with the fireworks. And that's also going to be our plan B location for the food trucks in the event that we do have like a wet day, because we don't want to have too many trucks, obviously, on the fields in the event that if it's a little wet over there. So 25th is what we're shooting for with a rain date of the 26th. Jen, what am I forgetting?
Thank you all for having us. And just so I want to make sure the police know if they're still on that I'm actually not driving my car, but I'm charging my phone battery in my car waiting for us practice to end. I think Amy's covered it all. Our question to our board is, with our food trucks, are we allowed to have 80 beer trucks in the park at this event with fencing or a perimeter set or anything of that nature?
Yeah, I was actually going to ask if you would come in front of us for a one-day liquor license. I see
My
something.
question is, can we come in front of you for a one-day liquor license for this event?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why you can't, but it says The use of alcoholic beverages is illegal on park property.
Yeah, that's an old form. Evidently, we have enough.
Yeah, so we have a new form, a new policy, so yeah, you can come in front of us for a one-day liquor license on town property.
We can.
Yes, you need to have a specific license and a specific vendor, but it is allowed if you meet the requirements.
Great. Well, we'll reach out to get that form and we will take a look at it. And there's certainly, like the food truck phenomenon, there's plenty of, beer trucks in the area that would love to participate. So we will do that for sure.
Yeah.
Joe, does the beer truck pull the permit or do we pull the permit for the beer truck?
They do, I believe, right?
No, the nonprofit. Well, they only want beer and wine, I would think, beer.
Yeah, I mean, I would pull it as a nonprofit, and you would be hiring, quote unquote. I mean, I think it's a sidebar meeting with Joe, but there is a way to do it, and we can go through it on the side on how to go through the process. But
well, that's great news. We'll meet with Joe and we'll figure out what we need to do and what the form looks like and all that. So that's great that is an opportunity. Any questions on the layout or the items we've chosen? It's going to be this is actually our 10-year block party anniversary, which is pretty exciting. And I think it's going to be, I know it will be a huge hit. I think our community is hungry for an event like this, and they've missed it the last 2 years. So we are anticipating it to be bigger than ever, and we're trying to, get more food trucks for that reason. And we have this street performer and hopefully live music and more bouncy houses, so it can really be this incredible event for our community.
And have you met with Chief Stevens yet?
Yep, we have. Yes, yep.
Well, I've been talking with Scott Janes.
Yeah, we've been in communication with the police department.
Right.
Yeah, because if it's going to be crowded, you definitely want their participation. But great, no, we support it, and whatever we can do to help. And just meet with Joe on the process for the one-day liquor license, and if you need to come back to us for whatever, please do.
What time does it start?
4 o'clock.
It starts at 4, yep.
Thank you.
And then all of the events will go until 8, and then we'll sort of wind it down, and then everyone can get set up and ready for the fireworks that will start, at dark.
Yeah, the only thing I see that's missing here is a dunk tank. Our town manager loves to be a volunteer for dunk tanks.
I have a dunk tank on the list, don't worry.
We are getting a dunk tank.
If there's anyone from the select board that would like to participate, we'll take volunteers.
I've been in it before, so I would do it again, I guess.
We would never forget that.
That's funny.
And we're not, I think maybe I had mentioned to Lori that we were talking about closing down Asbury Street, but we're not going to do that anymore. We keep Asbury Street open and keep everything at the park.
We're going to keep everything at the park and not, you'll have access to the community house bathrooms for overflow. We're also going to obviously have porta potties set up at the park. Sean's going to get those set up for us. So, but we don't see the need to close down that window of Asbury Street and to keep, everything just the park and centralized. And then we'll just have the police details at all the major crossings and help with parking.
Good.
Great.
So I have a question. This is Rosie Kennedy. So I'm just pondering a question about food trucks and dessert trucks. I'm wondering if there is a way that you could consider a less expensive alternative for families, such as maybe a local entity could put on, say, a hamburger grill or something like that. I just remember there are a lot of local horse shows over the many years, and there have been just hamburger, hot dog, maybe chili, and the money raised goes to a good cause, and it's also less expensive for families. And the same thing with a dessert truck. So I'm just wondering if you'd consider that.
We're absolutely considering that, and we have such a wide variety of, because I know that the price point can change based on the food truck and what they serve. So, and we're really, really trying to use as many local businesses as possible. We're hoping to get Riverview Pizza involved. They have a food truck, and that would be, a much lower price point. If we don't get Riverview involved, I'd love to do something, as you've mentioned, and engage one of our, local pizza shops to set something up and sell slices. I think we've done something like that in the past before. But the hamburger and hot dog's a great idea. So we'll definitely look into that and make sure. And we're going to have, sort of higher end desserts, but then just a basic ice cream truck with, all different price points as well. So we will keep that in consideration for sure. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and I'm also just thinking about maybe a local entity. I think about Joe, who was just talking about raising money for autism, doing some fundraiser. I mean, why couldn't something like that be an entity at the block party? It's local. It certainly supports local things. So I'm thinking more local entities that would benefit from the revenue. Just a
That's
thought.
a great idea.
Yeah,
We actually we were sidebar texting, listening to both of them present on those programs and saying we absolutely want them to have a table at the block party and to be able to market those programs to our community. It's a perfect time for it. And we're hoping to do some sort of shop local as well piece and put that in its own area so our local entities have exposure or fundraising opportunities if they would like them.
And the town hall, we could do a fundraiser for the town hall.
And
Cookies.
when Rosie was talking there, Jen, it was making me think about when we have like the Public Safety Day and stuff like that, and the fire department does their cookout, maybe we could ask them if they want to be involved in some kind of aspect of it other than just being the detail, some kind of presence for community policing and fire and stuff like that to be involved and make it more of it's a community event, but make it a wider community event.
Even the American Legion might want to.
And the Legion and the COA, stuff like that. Since this is the 10th anniversary, you want to kind of make it as big and inclusive as we can.
Yeah.
We love those ideas. Those are great.
Yeah, great. Well,
and we have a whole committee on the program, so we would encourage any of those discussions just to contact us, and we would love to we meet weekly on it to iron out all these details and make it as great as possible.
Yep, I'm always interested in how we can have fun events that don't cost half a week's salary. We have a lot of people who are hurting because of the pandemic and want them to be able to enjoy it just as much. So that's my spiel for inclusiveness, financial inclusiveness. There you go.
Great, thank you.
I don't know if this is a paperwork thing for tonight or later, but the application that I think we're voting on does say it's acknowledged that there won't be any alcoholic beverages. So I don't know if we can deal with that later or.
Yeah, we'll do that on a separate permit. What I was gonna say is I don't want them to come back to us. There's also in the upper right-hand corner, there's supposed to be signatures by the park director, recreation director, police chief, and fire chief. I know you've talked to all these people, so we're gonna make a motion to approve it with the understanding that they'll follow up with signatures on this because I don't think he'll come back. So.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Sounds fine.
So
I did turn that application into Lori. She does have it.
Okay. So we have a motion to approve the request for Patton Park facilities on
June 25th.
June 25th for the community house, with the understanding that the park director, recreation director, police chief, and fire chief will sign off on it.
Second.
Do I have a second? Any further discussion? Any questions from anybody on the Zoom call? All right,
Thank you all. We really appreciate the support.
We didn't vote yet, though.
Thank you.
One really quick question, though. Would that
Say
also
aye.
cover the rain date of the
All
26th?
opposed? Okay, we have unanimous.
Okay.
Now you're good.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Does that cover the rain date of the 26th also?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
Thank you
And
all.
follow up with Joe on the beer truck.
Yes.
Absolutely.
We'll get on that right away. Thank you.
Thank you,
Have a
everybody.
great night.
All right, next item on the agenda is review draft climate change resolution. So who is close to this and would like to present?
Well, I have a copy here, and I believe this one has been updated with gradles, let's see, 4 other strategies that she added to it. Do you have that one, Joe?
I did not
Okay.
have that one. I only had the
Can
original.
you give a little background of it, Darcy,
Yes,
just so everybody can get up to
Yeah,
speed?
What this is we all realize that Massachusetts energy comes from fossil fuels that pollute and endanger our air and our water. We're looking for ways to mitigate the damage that we're currently causing, and that means we have to take action. So this is a first step prior to taking action for a community action plan. This is what they call what did I say, a TAP for CAP. That's a technical assistance program for the climate action plan. So it's TAP for CAP. And what it is that the state will help us to come up with some goals and help us achieve it. There will also be money available, I believe, for grants and things like that. We're starting out small, baby steps, to create, some momentum. And the strategies that Gradle added to this would be conservation and efficiency, replacing fossil fuels with non-carbon energy as a source of electricity, electrification of all on-site building energy use, and electrification of entire municipal automobile fleet, and then expand upon the plastic bag ban, composting, and recycling initiatives. And there are so many different things that we can do, small things that add up to great changes. So first of all, we have to get the resolution. That will enable us to take our first step in taking action, which would be the climate action plan. Once we get the climate action plan, which is phase 1, and we make progress, we can then go on to a phase 2, which would be more involved initiatives. But these are all things that we can all talk about, and the townspeople can let us know how they feel, and it's something that we're going to have to address sooner rather than later, really.
So the select board can start the initiative, and as we move forward, we need more and more town support to do it. This is just to start the initiative.
Yeah.
And this is to get grant. Do you have to have this to get grants? You have to have this?
Yes, Vicki is actually managing all this for us, thank goodness, because she's a gold. She's gold. And what she's already submitted a grant request to get us to phase 1. And once we get the CAP, the climate action plan worked up, and then we can start taking steps, and then it will come time for phase 2, and so on until we get where we want to be. So this is just the very, very first steps.
So what we've done, right, we've done stuff, right? There's a list of what we've done. It's kind of nice. It says we've done the ground-mounted solar in the landfill. We've done community choice aggregation for electricity. We've done rooftop solar in the library. We just signed that contract tonight. We're doing municipal compost pickup.
Yep.
We're doing partial pay-as-you-throw, which is the blue bags. EV car charging station. Where are those located?
We got a grant, they're out
We
back
have
here.
2, and we actually just got a grant for, I think,
third?
4 more that are going to be located near Patton Park.
Oh,
We
that's
did
wonderful.
all the LED streetlight retrofitting over the last couple of
Yeah,
years.
we've done a lot.
Yeah, we're-
Energy use. So we've done a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
things.
we've
which
been a
is-
designated green community for a while now, too, so.
2010.
So this is our natural next step.
Yeah.
And then are there other communities we're gonna? Is it?
We're going to be leaders
Okay.
on this, but there will be other towns following in our wake.
So who actually, where does this template come from? Did somebody write this, or is there a template? Because this is
Vicki put this together, no.
well written.
No, the.
Hamilton Wenham Green.
Wenham Greens
And it's
did
a
it with-
conglomeration of resolutions that they gleaned from.
And then Rosie and I had our input, and then Gradle had a final word. We're going to be meeting on this, is it next week? Next Tuesday, I think? That's the next meeting of the Greens, so we'll go over, we'll report to them what we've learned here, if there are any questions or anything or concerns. And then they're going to, take all the changes that people have talked about and kind of incorporate them. So we'll see where we end up after next week.
Actually, we don't have the plastic bag in that list of things, that the plastic bag ban as well, as it should be on our list of what we've done.
Oh, yes.
Expand, it's number 4 at the bottom, expand upon the plastic bag.
But we
I think
in the
Bill's
fourth
talking
paragraph that
about
we list all the things
previous
we've
or
done.
In a list of
and they're
things,
they're
kind of our
whereas.
accolades
It's
here,
really
yeah.
important that people know how busy we've been.
It's been pretty impressive.
Yes.
So this is a draft. This is a first read.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think we should all go home and read it and make comments. But
I would, yeah.
as an overall, I'm in, obviously, in anybody against this, we can debate that, but I'm in favor of this. I think we just need to get it right and make sure we understand what the next steps are.
Yeah,
But-
Vicki will be our guide. She's really good.
We're not going to do a net zero town hall, though. That will not be on our agenda.
That was the one question I was going to ask, because, and be it further resolved,
Right.
that ultimately all new and renovated municipal buildings will be fully electric with no
Right, and
on-site.
At
Yeah,
some point in the
ultimately, there's a
future.
key word.
Okay.
Yeah, that was an important word to put in there.
Yes.
That it's not,
And that we can potentially obtain 100% of our energy.
Right?
right, yeah, so it's not saying we have to do it, it's our ultimate
I'd
goal.
say we're going to strive for that, right?
Yes, everyone is. Everyone in America.
On a kind of side-related note, there was an article, I believe in the Globe, just in the last week or two, about that Massachusetts is in a trash crisis. We have more trash than we can
Exactly.
do anything with, and it's going to cause a lot of money in the state to get rid of our trash. And with Wheelabrator and the other places, they can't handle the volume.
Yeah, and other states, in fact, I think, I don't remember if it was Maine or New Hampshire, but the residents there went bananas when Casella wanted to open a landfill, and they just said, take your trash somewhere else. I mean, they were so against it.
We're really going to have to change a lot of business models, the way we do business, either as the end user or as a.
Well, packaging in general, right? Packaging in general, right? I mean, we're starting with baby steps, but it's true. I mean, if you look
Make
at,
enough
if you
of them.
just drive around your neighborhood and look at the amount of trash that people put out every week.
That's why it's so important that the people mailing these things to us address that, you know?
I
Manufacturers.
mean, so, yeah, so we signed that a few weeks ago, and that goes into
Another
the
thing.
State House in the next
Yeah.
next few months.
So you signed the letter to the legislators.
did.
Rosie reported that you and Ann had worked on the resolution. You haven't adopted a resolution yet.
No, we haven't, but that was to come, I
Right,
think.
yeah,
And
okay.
I was very, Ann, actually, I see Ann on here. And, yeah, she did temper the language, which is much more palatable, I think. It made claims that I wasn't sure that they were going to be able to do, and I didn't think that was fair to put those claims in there, like it was going to create jobs or whatever. So anyhow, I think it's a fine document now, and as I said, I will forward it to the board.
Okay. Does anybody on the Zoom call wish to ask any questions or comments, or in the room here on this? Okay. So Darcy, I'll look to you for direction here, but the next steps are...
Yeah, somebody's raising their hand. CD, I don't know who CD is.
Yeah, please identify yourself and your address, and you're free to speak for up to 3 minutes.
Oh, thank you. My name's Christine Downing, and I'm from Rockport, and we're working on the very same thing. So I would love to have a contact. Who's the name of the person who's presenting?
Oh, my name is Darcy Dale.
I can find you, I assume, through the town office and find a way to contact you? What's the easy way?
It would be
There's no image of us
email
up there.
through the
Okay,
town,
great.
and I think you can find that on the site.
Yeah, perfect. And then also I'll follow up. I'm interested in the grants program you just mentioned, and I have a copy of your this draft proposal, and it's great. So happy to have another model here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Communication.
Leader in the community. There you go. Other communities will follow us, right? That's good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? So next steps, Darcy. So you want to, do you want to vote? Do you want to make comments too between now and then and vote on it next? Like, who do the comments go to?
I think what we're going to do is Rosie and I will be meeting with the Hamilton Wenham Greens next week, as far as I know, and we'll probably get it right down to where we want it, and then we'll bring it to you again,
Okay.
minor changes. And then I guess what we will do is we will vote on it as a resolution for the town. Does that sound right, Joe?
Yeah, do you want the board members, your other board members to make any comments if they have any
Oh,
about the
yes, that's
resolution?
why,
prior to-
yeah,
Okay.
that's why it was part of the packet.
So they'd share that with you directly?
That would
And
be
you bring it
great.
to the Greens and see how,
Yes.
yeah, okay, that makes sense.
If they could do that, that'd be great.
All right, so
Lots of
comments to you, Darcy, just so we can centralize it. I hope you don't feel
Absolutely.
left
No,
out.
no, no.
And then, when is the meeting, so we know when to get any comments to you by?
I think it's next Tuesday, but I don't have the Zoom yet, but
Okay.
somebody suggested that it will probably be next Tuesday.
So sometime this week would be best. Okay.
Yes. So we have a week to get your thoughts together and.
I read it, it's very well written, there's probably some tweaks to make to it.
And Darcy, did you take note to add the plastic bag?
I did.
Okay,
At
perfect.
Plastic Bag Ban, and then our end-use material and packing recycling
perfect.
effort
Andrew was
at the
raising her hand.
beginning.
Ann?
Hi, Ann.
Hi. I was just thinking when you were talking about the volume of trash, and given that we just approved the block party, it would be great if at the block party there were compost bins and we asked the vendors to have food containers that were either recyclable or compostable. We're asking all our citizens to do curbside recycling, so it'd be really nice to have a town event that had that as well.
No, I think
Yeah,
that's a
we
great
will-
idea.
We will communicate that to them ASAP. Great idea, great requirement.
All right, thank you.
And Joe, it should be in our policy from now on, too.
Yeah, I was going to say, can we put that as a policy that any
Town
kind
owned.
of town,
That's on town property.
something that we should do our,
You'd have to vote it as a policy.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, I think-
Once you guys adopt this, you can make this
Yeah.
as a part
should
of the
do that,
policy, do
though.
that.
yeah, I
should
think
make
that'd
that
be
a
a good
policy.
idea.
Agreed. Anything else, Ann? Okay. All right, so we will put this on our next agenda. All right, next item on the agenda is the review the Project Bread Universal Free Lunch Resolution. Is that, Jamie, is that something you're going to present?
Yeah, to the extent that there's a presentation.
Tell us about it. I mean, you and I talked about it, but.
Do you want me to share the resolution on the screen?
Yes, please.
Sure. Yeah, so there are two bills. I think it's House Bill 714 and Senate Bill 314, and this would be, if approved, a resolution to voice our support for it, sort of like we did for the extended producer responsibility thing. So school lunches have been free to all students since during the pandemic, and but I think that runs out next school year. And the normal way that has been done prior to that has been that kids and families who demonstrate their financial need can receive school lunch or free school lunch. And so these bills would make free school lunches available to all kids. So that's what it is. We want to talk about why and the purposes of it. Some of it is expressed in the resolution itself as far as it's good for academic performance, but also important for other reasons. I don't know, it would not, I think it is being considered by the school committee as well, and it wouldn't increase the taxpayer burden on the people of Hamilton.
Can I ask, I just want to make sure it's clarified. So this is now enforced, but it's going away?
Yes.
And when is it going away?
I think the coming school year.
The next school year.
Okay, so September, wow.
They haven't extended it.
Will they extend it? And if they do, if we make this move, how will that work?
I don't think it
So
would affect
it was
anything.
extended as a result of
COVID?
state and
Yep.
federal law due to COVID, right?
I think if they extended it,
So this
it
would
wouldn't
be
make
a-
any difference.
Yeah, this would be a way of extending it permanently.
Right.
Okay, great. Should be.
Has there been any estimation of what the cost of that is?
Not that I have available to me. There, it will, I'm not saying that it's a net saver. I mean, it's probably going to be a tax burden on the taxpayers of Massachusetts. I was more referring to the real estate tax burden of Hamilton. I know it will, and I'm sure, net, it's going to be an increase. But there will be some things that the schools won't have to do now, which is act like debt collectors and
Right.
There's a whole lot of financial effort that goes into keeping track of all of this. And anyway, that's just one minor part of it.
And do we know how it's done so well? I mean, I mean, obviously it's a program I support, but have we seen an impact like from it? Do we know how, are the lunches being used? Because the food gets purchased by the school. If they don't get served, I don't know where the food goes. So how do they sort of manage it in the school? Because it's sort of free every day for every kid, right? And so how do are they serving more food, more lunches? Has it been successful within the school district?
I do not know the
Like, how do we
answer to
track
that.
that
I believe-
success?
So, and I should say, so I spoke to the CEO of Project Bread, who lives in Hamilton, and as well as Stacy Verge and Michelle Horgan, who just happened to be at a court at the same time. So we kind of were on a call together. So my memory from that conversation is yes, but I don't have statistics here for you.
I'm in favor. I just want to make sure it's been successful to date. So it's sort of like, how do you make it better? How do you make the program better, or how do you make sure it's working? But I support the initiative. So
Will there be an evaluation period, so if we think something could work better, is that?
well, that's a state. It's going to end up being a state law, so it's not like it's going to be up to us, anyways. But if we're going to promote the state law and support it, it'd be nice to know that it's working in our town, right? So.
Right. We're not making a local decision to do this for our schools,
Right.
especially since we're not the school committee.
Just write a letter.
State initiative.
We're voicing support for bills that are in the Massachusetts legislature.
So do they have a list of how many towns have supported this, or written a letter yet? Because we're not voting tonight, right? This is just a draft discussion.
I didn't anticipate that we would vote.
Yeah, so if we can, just be curious to know. Once again, I don't care that if there's not, I'd be curious to know who else supported. Has there been any other questions or comments? And just, I'm in support of it, but just want to make sure it's been successful in our town.
I'm going to say yes without any data or knowledge. And I'm basing that on being a school teacher and seeing kids in situations where a meal really helps. 1 in 4 kids in America goes hungry. So, it's not just in impoverished areas. It happens in Hamilton, too. There's a lot of people in this town that go to the Accord and other food pantries to get food for their families. So any kind of, before the pandemic, we had free and reduced lunches, but I think this would really make a difference in kids' lives. It also, as Jamie said, you have to kind of apply for those free and reduced lunches. And this would take that stigma out of it, of being that kid that can't afford it, and other people knowing that you can't afford it. So it's going to really open a lot of kind of opportunity and kind of level the playing field for kids to get a good education with a full belly.
The other thing is, even though some families might live in these larger homes that look like they're doing very, very well, you really don't know what their situation is behind the front door.
Right.
So, everyone is affected, really.
I have a very basic question. What does school lunch cost these days?
A lot. $3?
It's just under $4, I think. At my school, I think it's like $3.80. Well, when you had to pay for it, it's like $3.80 or about $5, a little less.
You have 3 kids?
So,
That's up every day?
Yeah. You got 2 or 3 kids in the system, that's $15 a day almost, $10 a day, depending.
that does add up.
Okay. So yeah, we'll look at it and then we'll put it on the agenda for next week. And any other comments, questions from anybody on the in the room or on the Zoom? Okay. Thank you, Jamie, for bringing this to us.
Okay. Jamie, do you know where that is at the House and Senate, by chance?
I do not. this was a couple of weeks ago, I heard about it being on in the news,
Yeah.
and that it was in committee. I don't know
Okay, so-
exactly what committee.
Right. Sometimes they languish a bit in committee, so this letter, or this kind of proclamation on our part may hopefully show some
Well-
support and move it.
Given that there'll probably have to be a budget component to it, they may try to bring it out of committee during the budget.
Right, while they're doing their budget cycle, yeah.
Okay.
It's an interesting idea.
All right. The next item on the agenda is the Indigenous Land Acknowledgement Resolution. So we've talked about this for a couple years now. I believe Everett brought it first through the Hamilton Human Rights Commission as a student sort of advocate, and we pondered it and discussed it. It's been rewritten a few times and discussed about what it would mean. It's just, I would say it's not a policy. It's not a. It's just an acknowledgement that we're making as a town, as a community. I've told Jamie through, as the conduit to the Hamilton Human Rights Commission, that I'm in favor of the concept of it, of the acknowledgement. I just want to make sure that we got it right, because I don't want to debate if we got the wording wrong, because that would be unfortunate if we wanted to do the right thing and got the wording wrong. So before we discuss it, I just want to say as the rep, if you feel comfortable, Jamie, just presenting where we're at today as the liaison, and then we can have some discussion to make sure we're getting the wording correct, and we can vote on whether we want to acknowledge it or not. But first, I want to get the wording right. So.
Yeah, and right. So the Human Rights Commission had a role. It was unanimously recommended by the Human Rights Commission, but originally it was actually presented to us first, the board,
Okay.
select board first, by Eleanor Everett, who, on behalf of the Hamilton Wenham Social Justice Club at the school. So, since then, we've had discussions, and, I put together a draft policy that we did look at, I think, at our October 4th meeting. And, and that's where we are. The Human Rights Commission hasn't done anything further since that recommendation. It's with us. And this was just the next time it got brought before us.
Okay. And there's been some emails that have been sent. I know that Anna Isaac sent an email, and I know that Tosh Blake had sent an email or dropped it off in person, right?
Yeah.
So we'll go around the room first, and then we'll let public comment happen. So anything else, Jamie, you want to add?
Sure.
I asked you to speak as a rep of the board. No, I'm asking you to speak as a select board member, to make that clear, yes.
Yeah, very briefly, and as everyone knows, I don't like to wax eloquent for too long, but this is a symbolic, it's a symbolic statement. That recognizes, accurate history generally. If, debates regarding the particular tribe, I guess the way I look at it is that Eleanor and the club did research. We've had the opportunity.
Boy, can I hear them stumble?
To do research. Since then, we have a letter from the president of the tribe saying this was the historic, Hamilton Wenham was the historic place of the Massachusetts tribe. It's been discussed a number of times in our meetings. If for some, so we have a request, basically, or a statement from the Massachusetts tribe, and from what I've read, it seems reasonable. Other people have done research on it. If it's a little bit wrong, right, and that's an if, right, if it's a little bit wrong, I'm not sure that really affects sort of the whole thing. So the town of Wenham has unanimously approved it, the school committee has unanimously approved it, and I think we should.
can I ask you a question? In the packet, in something it mentioned that either Wenham Board of Selectmen or the school committee, they did something a little bit different?
They did.
A proclamation or something?
Indigenous Peoples' Day.
Yeah, and then, but they adopted something a little bit different, but I think it was language that was presented to them, but I can't remember. Do you know what I'm talking about, Jamie? Maybe?
I don't, no.
I'll have to look back in my email.
Do you have any other comments, Sean?
help with that, just that point? I don't know.
Wait, when you wait, and you can clarify in a second, but yeah.
Well,
Okay.
I do have feelings about it. I would like to see us do an Indigenous Peoples' Day. Remember when I emailed you maybe November, October? And I said that would be something I could support, either for instead of Columbus Day or instead of Thanksgiving. I think it would be really appropriate to celebrate Indigenous Peoples' Day. But I do have a statement I want to read. We members of the Select Board, we don't deal with issues outside of our responsibility to the citizens of Hamilton. Regardless of where you are on the political spectrum, we all took an oath to serve every single body who lives in the town. And when I had the great privilege of taking the oath of office, I was giving you my word that I would work solely for the people and always in the best interest of the people in the town. So I really don't see the relevance of this policy designating private property as Indigenous people's land. What I do see is a lot of unintended consequences for landowners in Hamilton. Because this could involve land disputes, it could possibly involve land taking. I don't see how the policy serves the people of Hamilton who live here now and pay their taxes. I'd like to see the town adopt an Indigenous Peoples' Day, as I said, for October or November. That would be way more meaningful, I believe. And the Select Board doesn't deal with national issues. That's not what we do. We have a very specific duties that are enumerated in our bylaws. We have responsibilities spelled out. We administer the running of the town, includes mostly boring stuff, making sure the taxes get paid, the bills go out, the town's bills get paid. These are the things we do. So we sell water, we sell cemetery plots. It's really exciting. But that's what we do. We don't go outside of our four corners of our bylaws. And, I want to make sure that we do things like put the town warrant together for town meetings. We do our due diligence according to regular order as outlined in our bylaws. We deal with data, facts, and the reality as it is. And we do that for the people of Hamilton. We're pursuing a master plan study solely for Patton Park. This is going to reflect the will of the people who live here. And there are special interest groups that are involved, but I am here to serve the people, not special interest groups.
Thank you.
That's it.
If I can kind of circle back to my earlier kind of open-ended lack of knowledge, I guess. I'm just looking at the email here from Anna from earlier, and she says, the town of Wenham unanimously adopted a similar language by way of an Indigenous Peoples' Day proclamation. Yep. So they did a proclamation instead of this draft that we're looking at tonight, which they've designated.
That's nice.
It's in your emails too. You can click on the link that Anna sent, but it's a similar type of I don't want to say proclamation, but I guess it's a proclamation saying an Indigenous Peoples' Day instead of a policy, though, like ours is saying for a placard in Patton Park and to be read at town meeting, etc.
Yeah. A little much.
So, my turn?
Sure.
Are you finished?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
So, a couple of things. So I did receive this email from Anna today, and some of the things that I highlight, per the letter from Mr. Green dated April 30, 2021, the present-day towns of Hamilton and Wenham lie in the traditional homeland of the Massachusetts tribe. To begin with, I think there was some discrepancy about that, and at one of our meetings, we decided that we were unsure about that claim and that we were very happy to invite Mr. Green to come and speak with us. So the next thing is, Anna's letter goes on, we have a need to pay ongoing respect to the living descendants of the Massachusetts tribe who remain part of our original community. And while land acknowledgements do not offer absolution from the ongoing cultural and political genocide of indigenous peoples throughout American society, land acknowledgements are the beginning of a process for healing and understanding. And she further writes, I would contend that any remaining questions about the accuracy or appropriateness of the acknowledgement are a direct insult to the Massachusetts tribe. And so my first statement is this. I think everybody knows I'm quite a researcher. And one of the most important issues are that the Massachusetts tribe were not indigenous to Hamilton and Wenham, according to all the local research that I have garnered. In fact, we have a very famous indigenous person who was buried up on Sagamore Hill, Masconomet, and he was not He was not a Massachusetts. He was a Pennacook, and then there are other sort of smaller tribes that his group of people were associated with. And in fact, the fact that this letter encouraging us to say this, to do this because of, quote, ongoing cultural and political genocide of indigenous peoples, well, I take exception to that, and I see the honor and reverence and respect that our town has paid to Masconomet. For instance, he died in 1658, and he was buried on Sagamore Hill, which was his land. He was buried with his wife and his tomahawk, and things that were important to his survival. In 1959, the Hamilton Historical Society made the Masconomet grave on Sagamore Hill more visible and open. In 1968, Standish Bradford of Hamilton donated the area where Masconomet is buried. He also granted a right-of-way to the land. In November 26, 1971, a Thanksgiving memorial occurred at Sagamore Masconomet in a graveside service held to honor the chief and his acceptance of Christianity. 1972, George Ricker, yay George, of Hamilton donated a large memorial stone. In 1976, the Town Bicentennial Committee had funds for the observation of the National Bicentennial Year. Some of these funds were set aside for the improvement of the Masconomet grave. In 1994, the trash was cleared. The site was cleared of trash, wooden growth. Retaining walls were built, and fieldstone enclosed the entire site. And I'm not finished. In 1993, the chief of the Ponkapog people, Oitash, please forgive me if I've mispronounced that, consecrated Masconomet's grave, restoring peace to his spirit. In 2006, Hamilton approved a $2,500 fund, a $2,500 grant from the CPC to construct a plaque memorializing the burial site. In 2008, the Massachusetts Archaeological Society sponsored a ceremony at Masconomet's gravesite to mark the 350th anniversary of his death and to remind people of his life. One of the things that I found really moving is For the Native American, the landscape was a cathedral. It was like a sacred building to them. The tall pines were their spires. And this is where Masconomet's grave is, under some pines up on Sagamore Hill. And I just have two other things I want to read. And this gravesite, this was a marker. I don't know the author. I don't know who put this up here. I'm guessing it was the 2006 Hamilton CPC funding. This gravesite provides the public an awareness of a long ago people, an interest in Native American ways, and displays the historical significance of the Agawams, giving our children and generations to come a place to think and reflect in perfect harmony with a natural setting. And I'm sorry to take some time. I think this is important. And then here is the last thing, and this is very moving. Here is the gravesite of Masconomet, Sagamore of Agawam. As such, it is a place of deep spirituality and honor to Native people. Only offerings that are traditionally Native in manner should be placed here. Traditional offerings are handmade from natural materials and include tobacco, sweetgrass, sage, feathers, shells, bones, stone wood vines, and prayer bundles or pouches. The giver offers them with the deepest respect. Thank you, and be at peace here.
Have you been there? It's fabulous. It's really beautiful.
My point in saying this is that people in this town have been nothing but utterly respectful of the indigenous people who lived here. And I take exception to somebody writing ongoing cultural and political genocide of indigenous peoples throughout American society. This goes to your comment. If don't bring global issues down into our town, we are respectful. I know that I am such a lover of the land and conservation, and I feel very strongly that all the citizens in this town are so respectful of Indigenous people. And so I wholeheartedly support Indigenous People Day, and I am not convinced that this resolution with plaques in a park that mean nothing to Indigenous people, as this just said, that the open land, the cathedrals, are their cathedrals, that putting things like plaques, first of all, they're one group that would want a plaque, and then what do you do with the 25 other people who want a plaque? We have shown great deal of respect to Masconomet, his tribe, and there was one final thing. When we talk about the Massachusetts tribe and this land acknowledgement, I look at the statement from Harvard University, which is somewhere here. But their statement is that they honor the Massachusetts tribe whose acknowledgement of land and people through the Harvard University Native American program. And their land acknowledgement of land and people, Harvard University is located on the traditional and ancestral land of the Massachusetts, the original inhabitants of what is now known as Boston and Cambridge. We pay respect to the people of the Massachusetts tribe, past and present, and honor the land itself, which remains sacred to the Massachusetts people. So, I trust Harvard's research, and so those are my comments. Thank you for your patience.
That was good research. I appreciate that. I just want to make two comments or questions. One is that obviously we're not voting on Anna's letter, right? So whether you agree with it or don't agree with this, that's perfectly fine. We're not voting on that. We're voting on a two-sentence acknowledgement, right? If we want to rewrite the acknowledgement or take out things like that, I think, so my question to you is, do you not want to have, and I think that it's great that the town has done stuff. Doesn't mean just because we've done stuff today doesn't mean we shouldn't continue to do stuff. So I'm okay with having whatever you want to call it, a proclamation, a recognition. We can call it whatever we agree to call it, but I don't have a problem. I kind of do agree with you. I don't think we definitely need a plaque, and I was kind of against a plaque. And I think that we can allow board members and board meetings to read if they want to. I don't think it should be dictated whether they do or not. So I was in favor of just coming up with a 2-sentence acknowledgement, proclamation, and having it be on the record today, we voted for it. And then in the future, if a board or committee want to read it, they can. If they don't want to read it, they don't have to, but at least we've you know, whether it's today or tomorrow or the next day, but we just, as a board, sort of just acknowledge that it's, you know, because, I mean, we do have a human, you know, we did vote and to have human rights, and this is part of human rights, and it's part of people who live here, it's part of a proclamation. So I'm in favor of some of the things you said. You know, I don't want to debate, you know, Anna's letter, because that's not what we're here to debate. It was, she gave an opinion, and you gave yours, and that's what good debate's about. But I want to come up with a 2 or 3 line proclamation that we could just vote into the record as support of a student's body of work that's important. And if we need to get the writing correct and the name of the tribe or make it more general, I'm in favor of that too.
Can I?
How about Indigenous Peoples' Day?
I
Why don't we do that?
Kind of what Darcy's saying there. What if we, I know this is kind of 11th hour here because we've been talking about this since forever, but with the manner of acknowledgement, I mean, I'm fine with acknowledging the acknowledgement part, all that kind of stuff. The only thing I have an issue with is in the second kind of bullet point there, we all live on Indigenous land. I think it should be former Indigenous land. And then in 3, the manner of acknowledgement, I think if we did something very similar to what Wenham did,
Yep.
I don't think we need the plaque in the park and that stuff, because, I mean, people may look at that, but it
Doesn't mean anything, right?
there's no meaning, I mean, I don't want to say there's no meaning to it, but it's not, I just want something more meaningful, I guess.
Right.
You know, because I think the last time we talked about this, I talked about we should do something instead of just saying something.
Right.
I mean, action speaks louder than words. So I think the Indigenous Peoples' Day, and then working with a local Indigenous group or the Human Rights Committee and doing some type of programming or something around that time
You're
would be
going up
good.
to the grave site and just.
That's a great
Yeah,
idea.
we do a ceremony every Indigenous
Well, there are
Peoples' Day.
Indians
That's
that do
beautiful.
that.
Yes,
We go up there
exactly.
and do something, you know?
I think that's a great idea.
That would be more meaningful than putting plaques up or saying that, you know, the land isn't ours. Because unintended consequence, and it's happening on the Cape. There is some, you
Yeah,
know,
right. I mean,
issue.
so I'm looking for like a 2-sentence proclamation recognizing Indigenous Peoples' Day, and
That would be great
and
for
so-
October
And
or
then-
November.
well,
or
there is a
something.
day already, isn't it?
It's
our-
Columbus
It's
Day.
Columbus Day.
Day,
We
that's
just
the
forget.
most-
Yeah.
Indigenous People
The
Day.
one that nobody should be celebrating, really.
Well,
Well, I thought that was a.
So
I thought that was a
did anyone see the Wenham?
I thought that was a state holiday.
I don't know if
it is a state
Is it?
holiday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know that some towns have gone ahead and.
Made their own day?
Yeah. They renamed it.
I don't know if I want to
So
go.
if everyone can just kind of bear with me for a second, if you didn't see it in Anna's letter, there's a link to the town of Wenham's kind of proclamation. I'd just read it really quick, if that's okay.
Yes, please.
Town of Wenham, Select Board and Town Administrator, whereas the second Monday in October is recognized as a federal holiday, and whereas Columbus Day recognizes the October 12th, 1642 landing of Christopher Columbus on an island in the Caribbean, identifying the Europeans as having the first contact with the, quote, New World. And whereas the communities we know today would not be what they are without the contributions made by the indigenous peoples of the Americas, and yeah, and whereas we all live on former indigenous land in Wenham, Massachusetts, and whereas we would like to acknowledge the Massachusetts tribe, the tribe of indigenous peoples from whom the colony, province, and Commonwealth of Massachusetts have taken their name, and whereas we would like to pay our respect to the ancestral bloodline of the Massachusetts tribe and their, descendants who shall inhabit historical Massachusetts tribe territories to this day, and whereas we are nurturing a unified community that will respect and welcome the values and cultures of all of our neighbors, and now therefore the Select Board of Wenham, Massachusetts, in conjunction with others throughout the United States of America, do hereby acknowledge October 12th, 2021 as Indigenous Peoples' Day, and this day will be a time to reflect upon the struggles on indigenous peoples in our country and to celebrate their cultures and values and to acknowledge the Massachusetts tribes every year on the second Monday of October.
It's Massachusetts tribe,
Yeah.
so we would change it. I think
have to be
that's,
changed.
I think it's a great document to work off of, and I like the idea of having a ceremony every year up at Masconomet.
But that doesn't have to be written into the
No.
acknowledgement. That could be just something that's a byproduct of it, right?
I
It could be
think it's nice.
given back to the Human Rights Commission to do that. But I'm in favor of that. Once again, there's a debate over a tribe, and I'm sure Tosh will talk to us about that in a couple minutes. But so I just don't know. But once again, they didn't actually say that proclamation actually didn't say Massachusetts tribe in Wenham or Hamilton. It said in Massachusetts. So that's actually correct. That's actually factually correct. It just wasn't specific to Hamilton.
Right, I think if we get lost in the weeds of
I don't wanna get lost.
specifically who was here in the 1600s, I think we're never going to reach a consensus because we've got two different historical.
Well, one's right and
people.
one's not.
Well, maybe neither one are right. I don't know.
But if this is
But if we talk
pertinent
broader,
to us,
Keep
if
it
it's
general.
But if
Very
right,
general. That's very general.
But on the other hand, if this is our proclamation, maybe we should talk about Masconomet and just a suggestion and
Or
and
both.
his contribution and his tribe's contribution. I mean, he was obviously very revered through centuries, and I think that's important to do. I know, Jamie, what are you thinking?
So I don't have, and I have the Wenham proclamation up, and I don't have major disagreement. It actually incorporates a lot of what was in Tom Green's letter on behalf of the Massachusetts tribe. So I do think it's important that we do, make it as a separate proclamation for all that, Hamilton has done to recognize Masconomet and all of that. This is just consistent with that. It's
Right.
different. but
Yeah, it's additional, right? It doesn't mean we need to stop, right?
And actually, do you mind if I ask you a question? So when you said that you trusted the Harvard research, and I guess I'm just trying to understand what you meant by that in contrast to what was proposed here. And by the way, the draft policy thing that I put together, that was, mostly, it was just one idea. Someone asked me to do it.
Yeah.
That was not the Human Rights Commission, I don't think, that did that. That was sort of my draft of it.
I think what you were saying about the Harvard thing is they said Cambridge and Boston. They didn't say Cambridge, Boston, and Hamilton and Wenham.
Right.
But didn't mutually exclude Hamilton.
Right.
It didn't mutually exclude Hamilton and Wenham. It just didn't include Hamilton. It said Cambridge and Boston.
Because that's
that's
where,
where they were
that's the geographical region.
But it wasn't their entire. But yeah, that was. But I'm not going to debate that right
Well,
now. But, yeah.
well,
I got you. They weren't saying only in Boston and Cambridge. They were
Right.
just saying Boston and Cambridge. I got you. All right.
Right.
I was just trying to understand what.
Yeah, that was. What you,
See, right, because apparently there are differing views, and I think one of the issues is that there were no actual writings of those times, right? So it's all stories of
The writings
families
were
passing
colonial
down,
writings.
people passing down, the indigenous people passing down to their offspring and so forth. And so it does take a lot of work. And the research that I've done, and I wasn't looking for any particular affirmation one way or the other. I was just looking for information that was done by local researchers, and then I looked at their sources. And so this is what I came up with, and then I saw the acknowledgement from Harvard, and I said, they have money to put into their research, and not.
they also have donors with agendas, but besides
Right,
that.
exactly.
But I think as a group, we're in agreement that we want to be inclusive, not exclusive. So we'll come up with something that's, over time, that's general, that's not going to offend somebody. We're not interested in making a decision about whether it was Masconomet, Massachusetts, or whatever. That's not what we're about here. We just want to recognize, make a proclamation about Indigenous Day, right?
But we should also honor our local citizens.
Right, and I don't think we have a problem with being, like I said, we want to be inclusive, not exclusive, right? So.
And we also want to protect, because we're all select board members here, we also want to protect the townspeople from unintended consequences. That's important.
Right, and that
that's the
does that,
former
right?
indigenous land.
So I'm going to go, sorry, Tosh, I'm going to go to Debbie first, and then we'll go to you, okay?
I can defer to anyone who's on Zoom.
Yeah.
I think if there's an out there.
Debbie, there's only one raising her hand, so.
Thank you. Thank you for recognizing me, and I appreciate Bill's comments stepping back from Anna's letter. You can agree or disagree. Oh, if I'm speaking, do I have to turn my camera on? You can agree or disagree with her letter, but the point here is for the town. My main concern is that there's been some real dancing around the actual truth. Like, there are not actual private property rights that are damaged by doing a acknowledgement, a land acknowledgement, and there are many towns who have done so, and Brookline was one of them last year that changed the name in October as their official date to be recognized as only as land acknowledgement. I don't agree that recognizing the original owners and caretakers of the land diminishes the people who come further. So I think there would be some nice reflection to do upon that. And if it were up to me, I'd love to see hands to see who of you have been out to the Masconomet site. I have. I've taken out Cub Scouts. It's a very lovely site. I agree that it would be wonderful to have something representative go on at that location. I wonder if people spout off a lot about things that have been done and could be done without actually being willing to move into the action themselves. I've heard a lot of support, actually. Rosie had a lot of support for various things that have been done over the years, and so I don't see how that excludes being in support of this kind of statement. The actual I had it on a tab. The actual draft policy asks for the acknowledgement to be read aloud once a year. And this is at town meeting. Okay, you can change that to, once a year at your day of recognition of Indigenous peoples, but then leave the part about employees, board, and committee members are authorized to read or display the acknowledgement at their discretion. And so that can be handled. What is going to keep someone from making a comment at town meeting and reading the land acknowledgement the way that was done at the start of this meeting? And if done in a sincere way, I think that's wonderful. I think that was, Tasha's statement was mocking and was really insulting, not just to the people who came up with the land acknowledgement, but to all of you. It's a mockery that you are even considering this because the English and the colonials are the only history we should know. I will add that there is not one history or the other, that all can be true and none can be true, spoken as a history professor. I really appreciate that you are talking about this and sharing different views. And I think I would come down with doing nothing at this point is worse than doing something that you can then improve upon in the future. Thank you.
And thank you very much. We just need to get your last name, your street name for the record. Oh.
Debbie Everett, 200 Linden Street, formerly of 200 Linden Street. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Formerly? Formerly, I don't think she lives in Hamilton.
Tasha, you're up.
Anyone else?
Nope. Not right now. Someone might go after you.
She doesn't live in, I think she lives in Beverly. Oh.
Hi, Tosh Blake, Sagamore Street again. I think this discussion has been very productive, very interesting to hear, from different perspectives. Rosemary brought up some new stuff that even I didn't know about this, and I've been I'm not a historian or anything like that, but I've been interested in this subject. And there were a couple things with the original, as it was presented. I was actually participating in the Hamilton Human Rights Committee initial discussion where they approved certain language to be sent to you guys. Mr. Knudsen was there, Mr. Newell was there, the chief of police. There were a couple things that I had strong objections to. The first was the statement which the committee approved, and these are all sworn public officials, stating we are on indigenous land, which I pointed out, using maybe some strong language, that was kind of, almost seditious speech. I mean, as you've taken oath as a public official, whoever you are, and you swear allegiance to the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, which clearly delineates what is the sovereignty of the state, and that sovereignty is under the United States of America. So it's a completely false statement. It's completely disingenuous to say it won't open up any controversy over land claims. Of course it will. There are plenty of indigenous movements now who are saying, we want land back, literally land back. So it's a kind of a lie to pretend, it's just a philosophical statement. Anna Seizik has kind of said as much. She said, well, it's philosophical. But then after that, she'll say, well, we have to do more than just have, emotions of appreciating the indigenous. We have to do real stuff. So, that's a dangerous thing. That was setting up the town for probably illegal problems. What I understand is, and when I was president of the school committee meeting when this was also discussed and voted on, I brought up that point. The school committee decided to strike the language saying this is indigenous land. And, Anna, as a tactical move, decided to do that, to strip it, to keep the rest of the language, keeping in the Massachusetts tribe and all that stuff. So it was passed, but with that restriction. So, but then after that, she still her people keep trying to bring it to the board with that language in, pretending, it's harmless. That's completely false. I kind of wish we had, I know it maybe came in too late, but we don't have town council here to weigh in on this. But from what I understand, town councils of Wenham and Hamilton, from what I've heard at the school committee meeting back in May.
We've all agreed to take that language out. So.
Oh, good, okay. So I'd like to
don't need to belabor that.
Clear that up, because I think it was just brought up again. Secondly, if we are going to acknowledge certain particular tribes, we don't want to look like fools by getting it wrong and putting on plaques that it was the Massachusetts tribe when in fact it was Pawtucket Penacooks. So that's just, I don't know why the Human Rights Committee keeps bringing up that false information. I don't know why they're doing it, because the state of Massachusetts is called Massachusetts. It sounds like a convenient way to set up, I don't know what, hopefully not a land claim, but it's ridiculous. So, we at least have to get that right if we're going to acknowledge particular tribes. Now, like a point was made up, but Sean Farrell mentioned the Wenham Proclamation. It is true that the Wenham Proclamation, it was more generic. It was talking about the state of Massachusetts is named after Massachusetts tribe, that's true. But if we're doing a local statement, we want to be accurate about who was here. So I think Darcy and Rosemary both brought up very good points that, if we are going to educate people on who was living here, get it right. And so far, what I've seen, the Hamilton Human Rights Commission and everyone pushing that statement is completely wrong and sort of very stubborn about promoting a falsehood. And I think that's kind of unbecoming, in my opinion. And that's basically it. I have here, I think everyone here got a information from Mary Ellen LaPianca, who is incidentally on one of Anna Seidzik's webinars about this issue. And Anna's information, what she says, completely contradicts her own historian, who she's presented as being someone who is knowledgeable of the subject.
Let's keep it about
Okay, so that's all I'm saying. So we all know, basically I might be repeating some of the stuff here, but I guess I've been involved so long with this, I want to get it right when we finally get to the finish line. I'm not against any kind of statement acknowledging indigenous people, but I don't want falsehoods and wild claims about this is indigenous land, which is, you have oaths of office. Anyone who's supporting that statement is definitely in the wrong, and that includes everyone who's present at that meeting at the Hamilton Human Rights Commission. That's all I'd like to say about that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you. So I think, anybody else have any comments? I think what I'm hearing, and people can correct me, is that I think we're all in favor of doing something. And I think that the closest thing we're all in favor of, I'd say collectively, is a version of what Wenham has, right? And I think we just need to clean it up with some language that's more specific, maybe locally. And we have to decide if we want to be inclusive and list a bunch of tribes, or list one tribe or list no tribes. I think that's really unfortunate. I think that's what I think that's the debate we're at right now, is which tribe we list.
Well, it should be Masconomet's tribe.
Why can't we be local? Is there something wrong with that?
I'm not saying there is. I'm just saying we need to decide what.
We've been going up there for decades.
I think we could probably do both.
Both. In the state of Massachusetts.
Broad
right.
Massachusetts.
And then go narrow.
And then go into, Hamilton specifically, and then reference Masconomet.
Right.
and things like that in the.
Start broad and then kind
Yeah.
of tell a story.
It's really a very interesting history.
It is interesting.
Very interesting, and I was quite taken with all the reverential acknowledgement of his life, his grave, and what the indigenous people meant to a lot of people in Hamilton. We're very the land oriented here, so I just think it's wonderful, and I hope that we would do something on Indigenous People Day, and I would like to see some ceremony of some sort.
Maybe
up
we
at
could
his
do a
grave.
ceremony on Indigenous Peoples' Day.
Right.
You know, just do
Yeah.
it and
Is-
make
yeah.
it a routine every year.
Sort of a pilgrimage. I mean, I just think I think it's a lovely gesture.
And maybe we could invite, you know, American Indians that want to participate, or, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what's proper or acceptable these days, but, you know, you could make something out of it.
All right, I think we're going to move on, but we're going to offer, so next steps is, I think it's important that we resolve this, is that I'd be willing to take on the rewrite and get out to people.
Why don't we all put little
We all,
bits
but,
in? We can compile them.
But we can pull it out, and then, but like I said, I'd like to use I think, are we all in agreement that we're going to use Wenham's
I
as
think we use the Wenham
As
as
a
a
template.
template.
And then customize it.
And we
Yeah, we're gonna add maybe
improve it and
yeah.
add the Hamilton
Yeah.
local flavor into it.
Jamie, does that sound good to you?
That, Jamie?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. I agree, it's better to do something than to do nothing, and I wholeheartedly agree with that, because like I said, I was going to make that recommendation early on that says, listen, it's a living, breathing document. If we get it wrong, we just change it down the road. This is not a policy, this is an acknowledgement. So I think that's good advice from Debbie, so thank
But
you.
we can make it uncomplicated enough where it
Yes.
doesn't have to be something that we are worried about. We can have a unanimous affirmation of this.
All right, any further discussion before we move on? Okay, next item on the agenda is I had asked Joe that we wanted to issue a letter, to be the squeaky wheel, issue a letter to Verizon with displeasure of non-action with the tower, but I think since that moment happened, we have movement again, right? So,
We
yes.
got an email dated Wednesday, January 26th, from Chris Davis at Everest Infrastructure. Says, gents, looks like, and this is in my town manager report, but I didn't want to blow up this portion of the meeting, so I didn't say that, right? It says, looks like Verizon is finally moving with an end of February completion date. I think it is safe to communicate a March on-air date for Verizon service. We will keep you posted with any updates we receive from Verizon. Now, this is at the end of a little bit of a series of emails between Chris and some other folks at his organization. A gentleman by the name of Michael Culbert said that a notice to proceed had been issued by Verizon on January 21st. Timberline, the contractor, has already started the Verizon installation work. So that, I don't think that they have actually started installation out here, but they've started the process of getting ready to put stuff on our pole here. And he's the one that said the ETA estimated time of arrival for completion is end of February. So
So I think with that being said, my idea was to write a letter, very brief, 2 or 3 sentence letter, basically put on notice that there's a life safety issue in town by not having cell phone service, and just write a letter that that we want to make sure they understand this isn't about convenience, this is about life safety,
Public safety, right.
This is public safety, and having there's a select board sign it, police chief sign it, fire chief sign it. That it's important for us that they, basically be the squeaky wheel. But I don't want to waste time and money on that if it's going to happen by the end of the month, but we should be prepared if it doesn't happen by March 1st.
I was going to say, let's kind of give it a couple of weeks here and see if there's actual movement on it.
Yeah.
And then we can draft that.
But I'd like the, town council write the letter, give it a little bit of some muscle to it, and then we would all sign it. Everybody in favor of that process?
Yeah, I think that's
sure.
fine.
Anything to
I mean, we've only been doing this for
5 years.
well,
The good
8
news
years.
is we are collecting checks every month, so.
Good.
Yeah.
Just not as much as we could if we had a
Not as much as
provider
we
up
could,
there.
but we're
but
still collecting.
We're still getting the rental.
we get more once they start getting money, we get a piece of it, so.
And then the other thing is, nobody else is gonna go on the tower until Verizon's on the tower, so you're not gonna sell the second tier
Right,
until
till they
Verizon's
RF
up,
map
so
it, then-
It's holding everybody else up too.
Right.
All right, most important thing of the day, review draft warrant articles.
So these were in your, these were provided to you in your
Yep.
packets. You'll notice there's not really anything exciting here. There was one new addition at the end. Dana Alara, the chairman of the Hamilton-Wyndham Regional School Committee, had sent an email last week saying that the school committee had voted to seek permission to reopen the district agreement very, very narrowly to amend the school committee election language in the district agreement. That's because the language in the agreement is actually contrary to state law.
Right.
And they want to correct that. But they definitely see this as a step forward in allowing the three entities to work together on this. So we've added this as a thing here. They'd need to draft the language that they'd want both towns to consider. But other than that, it's kind of typical business items. At this point, it's about a 16 or 17 item agenda for a town meeting.
So can I just comment on the school agreement? I'm totally fine with that, and Corinne spoke to that a little bit before, and I've talked about it ad nauseum over the years with the nomination papers and stuff like that, so I'm assuming it's over. Can we stress to them that, obviously, I'm still pushing on the overall agreement rework, that this is great, we will definitely, agree to open it for this specifically, but we want to let them know that we're still very much interested in pursuing the overall document.
But if it's if we reopen the school agreement, isn't it open if it's open?
Is it similar to a contract? If you open the
Well, yeah,
contract for
that's the
negotiation,
question.
everything's on the table?
That's the question, I don't
Right,
know.
this,
Or is it
and I
specific?
agree with you, this is the issue, and I agree with you, that we can use this as an opportunity to open the agreement. However, we're not gonna have enough time between now and town meeting to resolve it, and this affects our town clerk.
Right.
This improves town, so the question is, we want to go a whole nother, year of elections with having the process completely messed up, so it's that,
Right.
is that, how do you balance, like, improve it a little bit or not? Is it better to do something to do not? I mean, so I'm struggling, because, it's an opportunity to open up the article. But then if you don't open it up and solve this problem, at least, then our town clerk's got a whole nother year of doing this really
Right.
messed up process.
There's no question about
Yeah.
that. But my question is, if the agreement is open, is it open? That's my question.
Be joking
And-
as town,
and I don't
joking
know
as
the
town
answer,
council.
right?
The same.
And I would like to say, we're gonna open it up.
He agrees.
I agree too, I just don't know what we're.
I mean, I don't know if it's like a contract or if it's different. I mean, regional agreements are kind of their own unicorn in
Yeah.
general.
This
and
one's ancient.
To each regional, it's a different animal.
Yeah.
I just don't know what it's like
Right.
with the terms of this agreement.
Yeah, maybe that's something our.
I will ask town council, yes.
Since if we agree to open it for this purpose, do we also have to agree to close it? Like, I don't know the procedure on
right.
how that
Right.
works.
Do we
Like,
have the
typically, when
right-
you open something, you have to close it.
Right.
So I'm not sure if it's just open, we get a warrant article, it gets voted and we close it at this, I don't know how the procedure works,
Right,
so
we
I'm
should-
curious
we
about
should-
that.
So the board
check
wants
on that.
definition on the process.
We should also see if there are any parliamentary processes that we can employ.
Right, is there some,
I
maybe if
believe
there's some
There
other,
is a town who has opened up their regional agreement, and they did it through a citizen's petition.
Oh.
So that could be something that we could look at. It would be an indicator to the school committee that people are serious and that they need to listen and work with us, because this isn't sustainable. None of it is sustainable.
no, and I think through the kind of negotiations I had with the school kind of admin leadership before, they were willing to open it and work with stuff. It was just kind of, they had a lot on their plate at the time, was what they're saying, and that's kind of been the common thing for all of us. We've all got a lot on our plates, but.
Four superintendents in 4 years, that's the issue.
Right.
And the question, who's gonna be the superintendent next year, right? So I'm not sure if that's where that is at. So I think there's a lot to discuss there. But let me ask two questions about this. One is that on the CPC, have you voted in favor of these projects, or is these placeholders until you guys vote?
We've voted those, so the
Eligible.
annual CPC funding article is just us paying our debt, right? Our bonds and stuff like
And
that.
putting money into,
Right, and
certain
putting
pots.
money into the different pockets, say we get it from the state. The Patton Park Master Plan, we've approved as eligible, and this Thursday we talk about finance and funding and stuff like that.
Okay.
The community house, and it says, quotes, there's square, that's a bit in limbo. I wasn't at that portion of the meeting, but I do believe we deemed it eligible, but through some emails back and forth where Stuart Saganor, who heads up the CPC at the state level, he's saying he doesn't think it's eligible.
So,
Which if I wasn't at that meeting, maybe Joe can elaborate, but
Yeah,
I didn't see it as eligible, but I wasn't there to speak to it, and maybe Joe can elaborate a little bit.
so it was interesting, because the CPC asked for town council's opinion. Town council said they believed it was eligible. Then they asked for the coalition's opinion, and the coalition said they didn't think it was. I think that the coalition is an advocacy organization. They tend to want CPC monies in all cities and towns to be spent a certain way. They have a very defined
Yeah, they're starting to clamp down a little bit more.
But I have asked town council to look at, they have no authority to tell you how to spend your money, by the way. The CPC, the local CPC has a lot of discretion on how to spend its money.
But not absolute.
Not absolute discretion, but in any case, we did ask town council to go back and look at Mr. Saginaur's opinion, and there's an in-house, at KP Law, there's an in-house specialist on CPC, so they're going to take a look at it and respond. They will have a response for the CPC by Wednesday or Thursday, well, prior to Thursday's meeting, so.
Right, and just to add a little bit of confusion to that of what Joe said, my years on the CPC there's a lot of gray area with CPC, and it's up to kind of each town's interpretation for the most part. I mean, there are some guidelines and right, but you can spend your money in different things, and really the only time when they know kind of you've done something wrong with CPC funding is when someone sues you. And that's happened in a handful of towns at different projects where someone in the community has said, you know what, I don't think the money should have went to this, and then it's been challenged in court, and then the CPC will react and say, okay, so maybe we don't do the carpet for the turf field anymore. Maybe we don't do this anymore. So they give us some guidance, but there really is a lot of gray area there. So that's probably why there's a difference between town council's opinion and Stuart Saginaur at the state level. So hopefully we come to some kind of consensus. And a lot of times it just comes back to the CPC, and we just make a game time decision on it, right? And see what town meeting says.
How much are they looking for that?
Community House is looking for $200,000 from us and $75,000 from Wenham.
Oh, that's an awful lot of money for a private corporation.
Well, that's why I said, my only thing
And
about
they qualified it as open space. And the issue is it's not really an open space project. And it doesn't fit in, even though the community house is a historical building and the grounds are historical, this is a new project, so it doesn't qualify as a historical restoration. Right.
Right, yeah, I don't see how it would either.
So it's a difficult.
They did that earlier, and a couple years ago, I think they came to us for $100,000. You remember that?
Well, the community house has come to us a good number of times through CPC for different funding.
You know, just because the money's in the CPC bank, or whatever you want to call it, doesn't mean it has to be spent.
Right.
We could be saving that for town hall.
Town hall, right, exactly, yeah.
That's critical.
Right.
We asked Wenham
Be giving our
CPC
money
money,
away.
can we ask Wenham for CPC money for town hall?
You could, I don't know how far it would get.
So, Joe, regarding the warrant articles, I believe the Concom may be presenting something.
And then, Joe, the other thing too is that if we decide not to have a special town meeting, do we need to do anything differently at our annual town meeting? Because we've been talking about not having a special town meeting.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you need to do anything differently at this one. We don't, necessarily plan to have a special every year. But
Something comes up.
It's just when things come up.
Yep.
We tried really hard to not have one last year. What stopped us was the way we voted the budget.
$38.74.
The way we voted,
It was that in our budget overage.
Our budget over appropriations budget.
Oh, that's
so,
right, they didn't write that.
That was the main thing that caused it last year. If it had just been the unpaid bill, the bill of the previous year, I would have made them wait until May. I mean, wait them a year.
Yep.
You took too long to bill us, you'll have to wait. But, we just have to kind of wait and see what happens. If you guys go forward with the town hall project, there might be a need for articles related to that, particularly if we propose funding from other sources such as the general stabilization, the capital stabilization, free cash. Those are going to have to be town meeting votes. You may want to consider those in the fall, so.
Right. I think we should
Hearing
act.
about one, it's not save the money, but I just don't.
I just know we need to, I mean, if it's a possibility, we need to set it up now, but you're saying is we're not going to know for a little while, so, okay.
I think we should kind of actively try to do what we can to not have one and not assume that we're going to have one, because I think over the years, we've just kind of always assumed would have a
Right.
fall town
And it
meeting,
just,
and I don't
yeah,
think
gets
that's best
filled with
practice.
This and that, yeah.
I mean, because it's, what, $6,000 to $10,000 at least on a normal setting to have a town meeting, right?
It's interesting, the town clerk noted that your town bylaws reference the annual town meeting, the terms for setting up a special town meeting, which is what you do every year.
Right.
But it also references, the bylaws reference a fall town meeting,
Yeah.
separate and distinct from the special town meeting.
As long as I've lived
This is
here.
ironic, so.
I think we've had both fall and spring meetings.
Yeah, there was a time when it was just ATM.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never not been to both.
I know, so, it was good.
Yeah.
Is it that time?
Is it?
Unless we need to talk about setting up anything. The only thing I want to acknowledge, and I meant to mention before, is that I drove by, Patton a couple weeks ago, and I was cold outside, and there were, dozens of people skating on the pond. It was like a Norman Rockwell thing. It was beautiful. The lights were out.
It is beautiful, I love it.
Patton for the park, the pond at Patton Park. It was unbelievable. It was like.
Not that we encourage anybody to skate there.
What's that?
Not that we encourage anybody to
By
skate
all
there.
those orange signs.
Skate at your own risk.
It was
right?
0 degrees
We
outside.
don't necessarily encourage that.
But it was a great scene.
year.
It was a great,
Oh,
lot
I
of people, a
love
lot
it.
of community out there enjoying a very cold night, and they were enjoying it. It was.
Kids don't feel the cold, they're out there, it's just their little hockey
Let's go see that
gloves.
park get used now.
Speaking of Patton, the Patton Homestead, I don't know if we've had a meeting since then or not, but we had the outdoor
Yes.
day there that was very successful. It was quite a few people
Everybody
there.
sold out.
Yeah.
They estimate the crowd, because it was difficult to get a track, because they had a system in place that they were planning to use, but they had a problem with the app.
Yeah.
So they
It
weren't able
froze.
to.
Gold.
So they were not able to get an accurate head count. They know that there were over 300 to 350 people.
Oh, yeah,
was an
there were
estimate
probably
that during the
150
course of the
people
day-
there when I was there, and it was
the
starting to
estimate
slow
was During
down.
the course of the day, there could have been as many as 500 people,
Yeah,
Yeah, it was nice.
which is amazing.
yeah.
So, how deep is Weaver Pond? Does anybody know?
4 feet or something, isn't it?
No, I think it's about 10 feet in the middle.
I was told that you can't at its deepest point in the Merry Meadow, you can't necessarily, a regular grown person couldn't walk across
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. It is, it's a lovely asset, Bill. I'm right here in town, so I see it all the time, and it
Great.
just makes my heart happy when I see
Yeah,
those
it's great.
kids out there.
Side note about Weaver Pond, I don't mean to belabor the time of the meeting, but I know, it's always me. No. We had talked about Weaver Pond kind of invasive species mitigation, and we stopped on that because of the cost of the removal and the dumpsters and the trucking or something like that. We should reconsider that and see kind of what spring brings, how choked it is down there.
I thought we just had done it a couple years ago.
We did it a while ago. We raked it and
Right.
weeded it, or put the stuff in it.
Right.
And then I think this time we put the stuff in it, but we were gonna rake it or hydro rake it or whatever you call it. But I think there was something with the hauler or something like that, and we would have been responsible for removing all the material and stuff like that. And I don't think there was something that didn't work out
Can't
with it.
compost it?
We could compost it at Brick Ends. They
Yeah,
could pick it up.
maybe you should look into that, if we can haul it. Maybe even
compost a whale,
what
you
if
can
even
compost.
Casella could haul it to Brick Ends for us? It's all organic,
Yeah, should be compostable.
right? Think outside the box a little bit, because it was like the dumpster cost and the hauling fee and all this stuff.
Or we could get citizens with their dump trucks to come and do it as volunteers.
Right, I got a pickup truck, we can throw it in.
Yeah, I have a pickup truck too.
Yeah.
There you go. And I have a son.
But yeah, we should think about that again.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. So it's that time.
It's that
Shall
time.
I make a motion to adjourn?
Do.
Do I have a second?
To adjourn.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Meeting.
Thanks, Tosh.
I